Introduction asterisk. Fanfiction of Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. Featuring time travel without the tropes of harem, systems, or technological ascension. All characters retain their intelligence, and secondary characters are portrayed as closely as possible to their original selves. The narrative eschews mundanity for thrilling arcs, with the protagonist named Glyn Clegane, whose family motto is "Unity is Strength," and whose family crest depicts a marsh marigold. Chapter 1. Either Ser Jorah or Daenerys Targaryen. The Crabclaw Peninsula has its own legendary hero, named Glyn Clegane. During the reign of King Jaehaerys I, a member of the King's Guard named Glyn Clegane served under the conqueror Aegon. Throughout the War of the Usurper, the noble families of the Crabclaw Peninsula fought valiantly alongside Prince Rhaegar until the very end. The people of the Crabclaw Peninsula proudly declare themselves as exemplary subjects of House Targaryen. Following Robert Baratheon's victory, the already sparse Clegane family suffered devastating losses, with only Glyn Clegane, still in his mother's womb, remaining. Whispering Castle, a crescent-shaped military fortress built against the mountains, is surrounded by a smattering of small houses. In the Lord's Hall of Whispering Castle, a perfectly integrated time traveler, Glyn Clegane. Seated at the long table, Glyn Clegane is flanked by a man and a woman. The man, around 40, stands approximately 1.7 meters tall, bald, clad in a blue high-collared robe. The woman, in her 30s, stands about 1.7 meters tall, with long brown curls and a blue dress with a low-cut neckline. They are the head steward Herschel and the domestic steward Solana. At this moment, an elderly farmer kneels respectfully in the center of the hall, his voice trembling with cautious reverence. "Yes, my lord, I can confirm. During the day, I went out to farm at dawn, and my neighbor Marty always comes to my house to engage in various activities with my wife." Many times, after enduring the farmer's halting account, Glyn Clegane's expression remains unchanged, merely pursing his lips slightly. Silence envelopes the Lord's Hall. Seeing that his young master remains silent, the head steward Herschel clears his throat and says, "Old Pyre, do you mean to suggest you have caught them in the act, and did not take action?" Old Farmer Pyre ponders for a moment before replying, "I am quite angry, but I am no longer young. Marty is strong and vigorous compared to me. I cannot confront him. What your wife? I cannot confront her either." "Ah, indeed, the women of the Crabclaw Peninsula are quite formidable." From this day forth, according to local customs, the old farmer will soon acquire a notorious moniker, perhaps something like Weak Old Pyre. To be a worthy lord is to protect the weak. Only by safeguarding the vulnerable can loyalty flourish. Glyn Clegane understands well that, from another perspective, everyone requires protection, including himself. At the tender age of 15, the youthful Lord Glyn Clegane's voice still carries a hint of innocence. "Old Pyre, your lord has heard your account. I will arrange for 2 swordsmen to accompany you." With that, Glyn Clegane's gray eyes turn to a tall, armored man standing to the side of the hall, continuing, "Sir Pell, please arrange for 2 capable individuals. If there are no objections, apprehend them." Glyn Clegane inquires of Herschel, "Where is my domain currently lacking manpower? Where is the danger?" The head steward Herschel appears ready with an answer. "There are always needs for laborers capable of heavy work within the domain, my lord. However, I suggest you provide him with a sword. The wildlings have begun to stir again. You need more warriors. You are merciful. You must give your subjects a chance." "Very well, they are young and vigorous, prone to theft and bursting with energy. Give them a sword to confront the wildlings. If fortune smiles upon them and they survive, it will be due to the benevolence of their lord. Gratitude is essential. Grip the sword tightly and continue next time." Glyn Clegane nods slightly and gestures with his right hand. Old Farmer Pyre, with reddened eyes, deeply bows to his lord, feeling his spine straighten, filled with newfound vigor, secretly vowing to tend to his farm diligently, hoping for a bountiful harvest, one that exceeds last year's yield of wheat. "The lord seems too thin. It must be due to insufficient sustenance. If I cultivate the land well and yield more, my lord can eat more and grow stronger." Next, "My lord, my farming tools are broken. My lord, my son's belly has been aching for several days. I beg you." "My lord, that was my prey. The mountain wildlings stole it from me." "Merciful lord, the mountain wildlings frequently roam near our village, causing great concern among the villagers. Yes, typically 5 or 6 of them travel in a group." At long last, the morning's audience with the subjects concludes. Glyn Clegane is finally free from maintaining the imposing noble demeanor, stretching as he rises from the grand wooden chair. Alas, The need to uphold a noble posture like a painting is exhausting. Lady Solana, prepare a basin of warm water for the study, and have lunch sent there as well. Also, instruct Scholar Al to ready a raven. Once I finish the letter, it should be dispatched immediately. In the castle study, after finishing lunch, Glyn Clegane tidies up and picks up a quill. This marks the third letter of the day. The recipient is the current queen, Cersei Lannister. After the War of the Usurper, the Clegane family was left with only him as the sole male heir, as he was still in his mother's womb. The chivalrous Eddard Stark persuaded the new King Robert Baratheon to pardon Glyn Clegane's mother from execution, thus preserving the lineage of the Clegane family. However, in the aftermath of the War of the Usurper, Jon Arryn, the hand of the king of House Baratheon, has not forgotten to suppress the once exemplary family of House Targaryen, employing various means for 10 long years. Next year, the saga of A Song of Ice and Fire shall unfold, and the Game of Thrones is about to commence. Glyn Clegane has much to accomplish. To join this stage as a noble of the Reach, he must first ameliorate relations with the Red Keep. After many years, Jon Arryn has finally aged, his vigor waning. According to the storyline, time is of the essence. The Clegane family can finally breathe a slight sigh of relief. They cannot simply drift along. They cannot be content with the status quo. Once derided as half-wild, the Clegane family was once ignorant or incapable, but now Glyn Clegane has arrived. Glyn Clegane halts his thoughts, preparing to flatter. To the queen, embodying both courage and beauty. Out of admiration, I extend my most sincere greetings, and I apologize for this intrusion. 15 years have passed since the war, and at that time, I was still in my mother's womb, quietly basking in the warmth of memories that could not be retained. From a young age, I have always been grateful for the kingdom's mercy, which allowed the Clegane family to endure. Now at the age of 15, I am capable of wielding a sword and drawing a bow. Out of diligence and remembrance, our family motto, "Unity is strength," resonates deeply within me. As the years roll by, my understanding deepens. The essence of the Clegane family's motto lies in loyalty. 15 years have passed since the dragons vanished. While the Clegane family continues, we have become lost. Once, the Clegane family acted with unwavering loyalty, even when aware of the perilous path ahead. Because of our past loyalty, the Clegane family has lost trust in this new world. Without trust, the loyalty of the Clegane family has nowhere to take root. As noble as you are, might you graciously bestow upon the Clegane family an opportunity? It has come to my attention that your highness is about to embark on a royal hunt, and the Clegane family eagerly hopes to serve you in your glory. I am but a humble guardian, Glyn Clegane, utterly captivated by your highness's charm. With that, Glyn Clegane set down his quill. Chapter 2. Rational Loyalty. Amidst the Rushod King Robert's incessant pressure upon Queen Cersei, one seeks a ladder for ascension. To approach the haughty Cersei Lannister directly would likely result in disdain for the Clegane family, often referred to as half-savages. The Raven is merely a prelude. The crux lies in seizing the opportunity to showcase one's capabilities and strength. The land of the Crabclaw Peninsula is largely barren and desolate, characterized mainly by swamps, forests, and valleys. Every shadowy valley within the Crabclaw Peninsula has its own lord, whose subjects harbor distrust towards outsiders. The inhabitants of the Crabclaw Peninsula are predominantly descendants of ancient peoples. When the Undulls once sought to conquer this land, they met with relentless resistance. When not engaged in battles against external foes, the residents would turn upon one another, their familial blood feuds as dark and deep as the marshes that surround them. Occasionally, a hero would bring a fleeting peace to the peninsula, such as the legendary Clarence Clegane of the Clegane family, but upon his demise, all would revert to chaos. During the Conquest Wars, Princess Visenya Targaryen sought to pacify the Crabclaw Peninsula, vowing to accept them as direct vassals. Since then, the peninsula has remained unwaveringly loyal to the Targaryen lineage. Glyn Clegane entrusted the penned letter to the steward, Heschel. After a moment of silence, Glyn Clegane's slender fingers tousled his dark, wavy locks. Approximately 100 miles east of Whispering Castle, in the northern reaches, lies a vast expanse of arable land, relatively fertile compared to the Crabclaw Peninsula. This land once belonged to the domain of the Clegane family's ancestral stronghold, Whispering Keep. According to the steward Heschel, that land once sustained 1,000 elite warriors, ensuring the Clegane family's absolute dominion over the surrounding territories. In the aftermath of the Usurper Wars, under immense internal and external pressure, Glyn Clegane's mother relocated with the remaining retainers to a then relatively safe military fortress, which was renamed Whispering City. Years have passed, and the ancestral stronghold of Whispering Keep has crumbled into ruins, with the Cleve family having long lost their claim over that land. Solana, my mother must have faced great hardships in those times. My young lord, reflecting upon it, now still send a chill down my spine. In the beginning, my lady would sleep with two swords at her side, the long sword for the ever-looming threat of mountain savages and a short sword for her own defense. Glyn Clegane chuckled softly. She was indeed formidable. The usually stoic face of Solana bore a hint of a smile. My lady can rest in peace now. My lord, you are her greatest pride. After conversing with the steward Solana for a while, and once he departed, Glyn Clegane pondered over Solana's subtly veiled remarks. The harvest season approached, and the local mountain savage lords had fixated their eyes on the now vulnerable Cleve family, who had recently lost their matriarch. Though all were impoverished, the Cleve estate had consistently drawn attention. The opportunity was ripe. At this juncture, the rightful lord of the Cleve territory was merely a youth, sheltered beneath his mother's wings. The mountain savages, having united for once, would seize the opportunity to strike. If not him, then whom? The advantage lay with them. Yet, Solana was not overly concerned about the potential conflict within the Cleve lands. The Cleve family boasted 2 generations of sworn knightly vassals, Perpyri and Mason Beck. For centuries, the Cleve family has nurtured the most reliable vassals in this realm. With over 200 seasoned soldiers at their disposal, the Cleve family was well prepared. Among them, 20 donned full plate armor, capable of facing unarmored mountain savages with valor. Solana had accompanied Glyn's mother in numerous campaigns, agile and reputedly unmatched with a short sword. What truly concerned Solana was Glyn's youthful exuberance. Leading troops for the first time, he might charge recklessly, risking his life. With the Cleve family reduced to but a single scion, should Glyn meet with misfortune, all who sought refuge beneath the Cleve banner would quickly crumble, and the family would fade into history. Glyn longed to assure Solana of his prudence, that he would not act recklessly. To uphold the Lord's dignity, he must perpetually exhibit courage, rendering such reassurances unspoken. Since his arrival in this world, Glyn had felt a distinct enhancement in his physical prowess with each awakening. His sword, too, yearned for action. Mature in mind, Glyn reminded himself that this was merely one of the 10 illusions born from his enhanced physique. You are the Lord. You possess soldiers. Stay steadfast. Do not act rashly. Aside from a cousin 3 years his senior who had been wed for 4 years, Glyn was the last remaining heir of the Cleve family, a perilous situation for a lineage steeped in tradition. The Cleve lands were not tranquil. The Lord often had to lead his men into battle. With the passing of Lady Cleve, Glyn Clegane, as the Lord of the Crabclaw Peninsula, would find his future life mirroring that of his ancestors, war after war. Being a lord in the Crabclaw Peninsula is a treacherous vocation. What if the last of the Claves were to meet with an untimely end? Those with even a modicum of awareness would feel the encroaching sense of crisis as loyalty wavers. The Cleve family holds the title of hereditary Barren. In accordance with the Cleve family's awkward position within the kingdom, Glyn's prospects for marriage indeed pose a dilemma. Too high for some, too low for others. At 15, it would be customary for Glyn to at least have a betrothed by now. Solana understood that a lord's marriage is not merely a union of hearts. The origins and outcomes of the usurper wars serve as a constant reminder for nobles to avoid letting love cloud their judgment. Thus, Solana believed that, whether a legitimate son or not, Glyn must secure an heir, regardless of the noble traditions and laws. This is not a curse upon Glyn, but rather a means to soothe the loyalty of his subjects. With an heir, matters of marriage would become more manageable. Solana had a son and a daughter. Her eldest son, aged 16, had already wed and was learning under Steward Heschel. Her younger daughter, Kalea, aged 13, had recently experienced her first menstruation. Healthy and beautiful, she was, most importantly, dependable. Having watched Glyn grow, Solana knew he was not a man devoid of kindness. Though fathering a bastard may lack glory, in this moment, it could serve as a boon for the Cleve lands. While the child may not inherit the Cleve name, he would carry the surname Weishue as a bastard, yet possess Cleve blood. In this light, bearing a child with Cleve lineage would ensure at least a modest farmstead, securing a lifetime of sustenance. Such a child would likely enjoy a better life than most women, which would suffice. Everyone would fare well. In blending into the local customs, Glyn found solace in having integrated the memories of the original host. With these memories, Glyn's behavior gradually transformed. He became more discreet, evolving seamlessly. As a former loyal vassal of the once mighty Targaryen family, it was paramount not to leave any blatant, incriminating evidence. Under the faith of the Seven, any extreme deviation could easily result in being branded a heretic, as the followers of the Seven are omnipresent across Westeros. At 13, Glyn leaned back in his chair, gazing at the ceiling for a considerable time. The internal conflict of beliefs was profound, warranting further deliberation. After several days of discreetly tallying, Glyn estimated that his direct vassals numbered over 2,000, primarily engaged in agriculture and hunting. Near the tranquil town of Light Whisper, approximately 1,000 individuals have gathered, while the remainder is scattered across 10 villages of varying sizes. Among these, there lies a village situated to the south of Light Whisper by the sea, with a population of around 200, whose livelihood is derived from fishing. It is named Fishing Village, a title that leaves much to be desired and hence requires alteration. At the very least, the term village ought to be replaced with port. Once this flurry of activity has subsided, it is imperative for me to personally embark on a journey, to conduct a thorough inspection and devise a strategic plan. The Lord is in dire financial straits and requires a significant influx of golden dragons. For 3 days, my loyal knight, Mason Beck, has been diligently carrying out Lord Glyn's orders to survey and document all blacksmiths, carpenters, and other skilled artisans within the territory. The chief steward, Herschel, has already organized personnel to tidy up the vacant houses. We must consolidate all resources within the territory to establish a grand blacksmith shop and a large carpentry workshop in preparation. This entails centralized production, division of labor, and the cultivation of skilled craftsmen, all aimed at laying the groundwork for a cold weapon factory. The Glebe territory is blessed with an abundance of fine yew forests, and it is essential to swiftly develop a populace of longbowmen, thereby securing a strategic advantage. However, elite longbowmen require more than mere archery skills. They must also possess unwavering discipline, a realization that Glyn understands will necessitate time to cultivate. The foremost task for Glyn is to mobilize all available forces to the greatest extent possible, leveraging the current strength of the territory to amass troops and eliminate the nearby mountain tribes, thereby fostering a relatively stable environment for development. Ultimately, the pressing issue remains the lack of wealth, prompting Glyn to temporarily adopt the family motto of might prevails over hard toil, with intentions to revert once financial stability is achieved. Chapter 3. Mermaid Harbor. On the table of Glyn Clegane lay 3 coins, the golden dragon, the silver deer, and the copper star. 1 golden dragon is equivalent to 10 silver deer, and 1 silver deer equates to 100 copper stars. Glyn conducted a rough conversion with the currency from his previous life, estimating that 1 golden dragon is approximately equal to 1,000 yuan, 1 silver deer to 100 yuan, and 1 copper star to 1 yuan. The monetary system, values, and conversions serve solely as a narrative device. For further illustration, a complete suit of full-plate armor starts at 10 golden dragons, a chainmail at 3 golden dragons, a fine warhorse at 16 golden dragons, and an unblemished one at 100 golden dragons, not including shipping costs. A meal with meat and a pint of beer costs around 20 to 30 copper stars, while the annual income of a farmer is roughly 1 golden dragon. The Kleber treasury currently holds coins valued at over 2,000 golden dragons in cash. This does not account for goods in the Lord's warehouse. However, there exists a debt of 5,000 golden dragons, with last year's interest already paid at 500 golden dragons. Following the Usurpers' War, under the direction of King Jon Arryn, the nobles and merchants of the Vale enforced loans to assist the noble lords of the Crabclaw Peninsula through their hardships. This was one of the peace treaties established after the war on the Crabclaw Peninsula. One would never catch sight of a golden dragon, as the nobles and merchants of the Vale considered your lands as collateral for the loans. Such is the harsh reality. Rejection was an option. The arms of House Baratheon had yet to be stored, and Robert had not yet satisfied his thirst for conquest. The valuation of the Kleber territory stood at 5,000 golden dragons, with the Kleber family accumulating interest payments of 7,500 golden dragons annually. According to the contract, an additional 5 years of payments amounting to 2,500 golden dragons is required, culminating in the final year with the principal of 5,000 golden dragons. This is a method of oppression devised by the Red Keep to keep the nobles of the Crabclaw Peninsula in check. The interest, cloaked in the guise of post-war reconstruction, is structured just so to allow for survival without compelling reckless choices while simultaneously stifling development. A weak and compliant lord of the Crabclaw Peninsula is deemed ideal. The entire Kleber territory is home to over 2,000 inhabitants, necessitated by the perpetual threat of mountain raiders, maintaining a standing force of 200 clan warriors. akin to full-time soldiers. Under normal circumstances, this is already at the limit. Frequent warfare has skewed the population ratio, favoring men over women. The women here possess robust physiques, and many are required to farm and hunt like men, resulting in a significant number of spearwomen. Provided with adequate weaponry, these spearwomen can be called upon to engage in battles, seizing wealth and captives. Theoretically, retaining only craftsmen and the elderly, a full mobilization could potentially yield a maximum of 1,500 soldiers. Chapter 4. A heartfelt exchange between mother and daughter. The voice of Sir Pell carried a tone of pride. My lord, I command 100 men with the precision of an extension of my own limbs. Merely a centurion, and how proud you seem, Grain thought disdainfully. In his previous life, he had effortlessly commanded hundreds of thousands in battle. But now this is the real-life version of Age of Empires. It is indeed different. The Crabclaw Peninsula, perpetually tumultuous and sparsely populated, resembles a rural expanse in terms of the scale of warfare. The battles fought here are akin to mere brawls. The participants are predominantly individuals unacquainted with grand spectacles, which poses a dilemma. In this region, individuals like Sir Pyre, who have fought for a lifetime and possess command capabilities, are, to a certain extent, invincible. A source of pride, indeed, one must acknowledge. Green displayed a satisfied smile as he continued his journey alongside Sir Pyre. Within the confines of Whispering Fort, after a period of stringent management, cleanliness prevailed, and various unpleasant odors dissipated. These subtle transformations imbued Green's steps with newfound lightness. In the evening, he arranged for the kitchen to prepare an additional dish, occasionally offering a bit of encouragement. In a training ground of Whispering City, over 20 robust individuals gathered, each standing like a tower of iron. These men were the elite warriors of the Kleber family, capable of donning full-plate armor in battle, and were referred to as Iron Men by the mountain dwellers. Upon noticing Green and Pyre's approach, the assembly halted their activities and bowed in unison. Green picked up a wooden sword from the rack, gave it a flourish, and inquired, "Who will practice with me?" Silence enveloped the crowd as they exchanged glances. Green casually pointed to one of them. "Yes, you." A previously reserved man, as he advanced, relaxed and earnestly replied, "My lord, I am Fury. I might get injured." Green chuckled lightly. "If you hurt me, I shall reward you with an extra roasted leg of lamb for lunch. Rich and succulent." Fury swallowed hard and nodded. The news of the young lord's practice in the training ground spread through the castle with astonishing rapidity, drawing a crowd that gathered in a manner almost unbelievable. Oh, oh, oh. The resounding cheers echoed as Fury, enticed by the promise of roasted lamb and buoyed by the atmosphere, exhibited remarkable agility, though he refrained from exerting his full strength. Fury possessed a modicum of wisdom. Should he genuinely injure the lord, the coveted lamb leg would be at risk. Chapter 5. Is he not adorable? The warm hues of the scene stirred Green's heart momentarily. In the short term, certain aspects proved difficult for Green to acclimatize to. The image of Kaliao lingered in his memory, reminiscent of a timid girl who had trailed behind Solana over a year ago. He marveled at the rapid development of the world around him. At this moment, what thoughts occupied Green's mind? In truth, his primary concern lay with the security measures of the castle, which required fortification. No matter how vigilant he was, or how much faith he placed in his martial prowess, relying solely on personal awareness for perpetual vigilance against theft was impractical and exhausting. The significant personnel and locations within the territory must be fortified for safety. One must remain wary of the vulnerable neck, for a dagger may strike unexpectedly. When resources permit, it would be prudent to procure some unsullied to serve as guardians, for they are trustworthy. 2 unblemished sentinels stood guard outside the door, a vision born from the imagination of a destitute lord. A smile graced Green's lips as he beheld Kalia, a long-awaited sight. "Lady Solana, have you begun to assign tasks to her? I wish to serve as a lady-in-waiting, but my mother believes I lack the maturity and must undergo further training. Once she deems me ready, I shall be by your side. Yet, I could not wait any longer and sought you out directly. I beg your forgiveness for my impetuousness." Her reasoning was sound, and Solana, ever dutiful, recognized that Kalia's seemingly reckless actions were a testament to her loyalty to the Lord. As a trusted confidant's kin, Kalia would likely not incur blame. Green, having indulged sufficiently, donned a robe with Kalia's assistance. He accepted the glass of red wine she offered, taking a sip that prompted his brow to furrow instinctively. The sour red wine, one of Kleber's regional specialties, left him perplexed as to how it could possess such acidity. Was it the grape variety? Fine wines must be imported, a costly endeavor. Thus he settled for this. Upon deeper contemplation, he found the flavor passable, yet chose to set the glass aside. Another reason for Glyn's ambition to conquer emerged. The night passed in silence. He arranged for Kalia to accompany Scholar Owl, whose frail form trembled with age, igniting Glyn's concern for the scholar's well-being. Should the Lord's scholar pass away, the Academy would swiftly appoint a replacement. However, the Academy was distant, and there would be a minimum vacancy of 3 months, during which only Scholar Owl could communicate with the crows, responsible for their feeding and management. The crows served as the most vital means of communication, and Glyn held them in high regard. Chapter 6. A Quest for Wealth in Men. At 20, Impalo stood tall, merely half a head shorter than Glyn, measuring approximately 175 centimeters. Her light brown hair was casually tied back, exuding both delicacy and a striking vigor. Her sun-kissed skin bore a slight roughness, while her muscular contours flowed seamlessly, avoiding any semblance of bulk. Most women in the Kleber territory toiled in fields and hunted, making Impalo's well-maintained physique quite admirable. Impalo wore a brown coarse linen robe that revealed her arms, the hem reaching mid-thigh, cinched at the waist with a thick rope. Her calves were bound with straps, and she donned straw sandals woven from wheat stalks. Perhaps sensing Glyn's gaze, Impalo flexed her toes slightly. Being summoned by the Lord himself for the first time was quite unexpected, and the renowned huntress felt a surge of anxiety. Impalo, I have heard tales of your prowess in slaying a black bear, Glyn inquired. His voice, though tinged with youth, resonated with an unsettling maturity that seemed to calm Impalo's nerves significantly. There were others assisting. I managed to take down quite a few, she replied. After a brief exchange to ease the tension, Glyn posed a question. Would you be willing to fight for me? Impalo, puzzled, responded, against the wild men? I have slain many, at least 10. The wild men frequently intrude upon our hunting grounds, attempting to seize our prey. The dialogue possesses a certain simplicity, yet Glyn has opted for a different mode of expression. You are remarkably courageous. My inquiry pertains to whether you desire to become one of my clan's warriors, akin to those in the training grounds. I shall bestow upon you armor and a sword. Impra appeared momentarily taken aback, prompting Glyn to continue. You shall receive at least 2 golden dragons annually, contingent upon your performance. The spoils of war will be even greater. Impra hastily replied, I am willing, my lord. As if to affirm her understanding, she inquired, but I am a woman, and they are all men. Will I not face exclusion? She expressed concern regarding the potential ostracism from the male warriors, yet she was not overly apprehensive about harassment, confident in her own strength to fend off any excessive advances. Glyn acknowledged her apprehensions. That is a valid point. The spearwomen of the territory sometimes accompany my warriors into battle, but they do not officially partake. Their role is merely to assist with simpler tasks. This arrangement is temporary, and no one will concern themselves with it. However, formal inclusion alters the dynamics significantly. Furthermore, mingling men and women can lead to unnecessary complications. Impra nodded, agreeing with Glyn's wisdom, though she struggled to articulate her thoughts. You are quite renowned among the spearwomen. If you were to lead a recruitment, you could. Chapter 7. The longbow of the Klebs in the Red Keep, Tyrion Lannister. With his tousled golden-brown curls adorning his forehead, donned a soft leather attire embroidered with the roaring lion. Standing just over a meter tall, he possessed a large head atop a diminutive frame, with a protruding forehead that lent his gait an unusual quality. Hey, brother, did you not notice my presence? What is it that you are up to? Has my beloved sister conferred upon you the title of her personal messenger? Jaime Lannister shrugged, slowing his pace. Tyrion hastened to keep up, remarking, Jaime, you ought to learn to approach me more readily. My primary role in House Lannister is to stand beside you, enhancing your grandeur at any given moment. With a resigned sigh, Jaime conceded, very well, you have triumphed. I shall admit that I am indeed on an errand to deliver a message. Instantly, Tyrion donned a cheerful expression. Ah, has my lonely sister finally succumbed to temptation? Pray, show me. Jaime's lips twitched as he raised the envelope. Regrettably, it is already sealed. As he waved the envelope, he deftly evaded Tyrion's eager grasp. It is not confidential. I can share its contents. Oh, it seems I misjudged the situation. Well, do not always interpret Cersei's actions with malice. You are siblings, after all. Oh, should I anticipate that my dear sister will bestow a kiss upon my cheek? Unless the 7 gods have dozed off. Tyrion, one must not speak disrespectfully of the 7 gods. The venerable 7 shall not concern themselves with my words. Tyrion patted Jaime's thigh. Now do tell me. It pertains to a minor baron from the Crab's Claw Peninsula. During this royal hunt, Cersei intends to bring him along. What an unexpected revelation. It appears my elder sister is in high spirits. The young baron seems to have taken the initiative to send this message. He is quite the sycophant. Haha, Jaime. It seems you harbor a certain aversion towards the young baron. fearing he might usurp your sister's affection for her brother? It is a rare occasion that you two share an opinion. I am not so base. Young men ought to devote their energies to the mastery of swordsmanship rather than sycophancy. Is it not fortuitous, Jaime, that as a member of the King's Guard, you may seize the opportunity to impart a valuable lesson for his development? Tyrion paused momentarily before continuing. Brother, the Crab Isle is a desolate place. As a Lannister, you shall never truly comprehend the pangs of poverty. When one's belly is empty, who has the heart to practice swordplay? The Crab Isle has a tradition of direct allegiance to the Queen. It is an ancestral craft of theirs. Brother, this is indeed a positive development. At least the young Baron is not foolish, as he recognizes the wealth of the Lannisters, does he not? Jaime appeared somewhat embarrassed. The logic rests with you. I am but suited for running errands. Chapter 8. The Golden Chamomile Ale. According to reports from the villagers, the mountain wildlings have become increasingly active. In his habitual pursuit of perfection, Glyn had intended to allow the troops more time to acclimatize and refine certain details. However, the spirits of the vassals were becoming increasingly restless. Glyn sensed that further delay was untenable, and war must commence. To postpone any longer would lead the subjects to believe that Glyn was intimidated by the wildlings. After inspecting the Thorn Legion's coordinated training exercises, Glyn made his way towards the Lord's Council Chamber in Whispering City, his steps still firm and assured. Whispering City, Lord's Council Chamber. Glyn sat high, with the back of the Lord's chair adorned with the swamp chamomile emblem of House Clegane. He accepted the wine cup handed to him by Kalya, grimacing slightly as he took a sip of the red wine. Remarkably, this tart red wine, once accustomed to its taste, proved rather intoxicating. The chamber was flanked by the retainers of House Clegane. Sir Mason was the first to speak. My lord, the negotiations with the wildlings have concluded. The appointed time is at dawn tomorrow. How many have they gathered? Sir Pell, responsible for the reconnaissance of the Legion, replied, approximately 1,000, I would estimate. Glyn, with his palm resting against his cheek, let out a derisive snicker. Upon hearing the Lord's sardonic laughter, there was a brief silence before the others began to voice their various mockeries of the wildlings. This disdain for the wildlings was strategically essential, as it would inadvertently bolster morale. This had long been the prevailing sentiment within the territory. Tactically, Glyn would never underestimate the wildlings. Glyn signaled for silence. Herschel, are the shields prepared? Herschel, the steward, replied respectfully. Indeed, my lord. There are 30 ironclad shields in the storeroom. In addition to 70 oak shields crafted by the carpentry shop, a total of 100 have been delivered to Sir Mason. Glyn returned the wine cup to Kalya. Herschel. Well done. Herschel bowed in acknowledgement. I shall reiterate the battle plan. The Thorn Legion will deploy 120 archers, each equipped with 2 quivers, each containing 20 arrows. The range of the Clegane longbow is well known to all. As the wild men charged towards us, they were first met with a volley from the Thorn Legion. Mason, during the initial phase of combat, your task is to utilize 100 shields to lead our warriors in holding the line and safeguarding the Thorn Legion until the quivers are completely emptied. The conclusion of the Thorn Legion's volley signifies the completion of the first phase of battle. After enduring a staggering 800 arrows released by the Thorn Legion, one can only wonder how much courage remains among the mountain savages. Chapter 9. The following day, at dawn, Sir Pell and his reconnaissance team had already departed quietly. Their mission today was far from easy. Nearly a dozen nearby tribes of wild men had emerged in full force, leaving behind only the elderly and the weak. The members of the reconnaissance team were the finest hunters from the Clegane family domain, and breaching these tribes, now left with only their frail members, would naturally be a straightforward endeavor. However, the challenge lay in the fact that these tribes could not possibly gather together. If they did, they would no longer be a dozen tribes, but rather a singular entity. These tribes were scattered across various territories, each possessing its own domain of differing sizes. Among them, 3 tribes stood out as the largest, each boasting populations of several hundred. Sir Pell received instructions from Lord Green to focus on these 3 major tribes, with a minimum objective of conquering 2 today. Thus, the key to success lay in the speed of the reconnaissance team's advance. The seasoned Sir Pell understood the significance of this day. The rugged terrain precluded the use of horses, and to avoid hindering their march, he opted not to don the gleaming silver plate armor he typically wore in battle, instead opting for a simplified leather armor designed by Green over his chainmail. Sir Pell found great wisdom in Lord Green's words, believing that as long as he maintained a steadfast stance against the enemy, there was little need to protect his back. He had always adhered to this philosophy on the battlefield. Although Green had not explicitly stated it, Sir Pell felt that Green was indirectly lauding his valor. The Lord understood him well. Ambitious by nature, Sir Pell recognized that this was the first battle since Lord Green's ascension to the Clegane family legacy, and it was imperative not only to fight well, but to do so with flair, thereby solidifying his position as the most loyal knight of Whispering Light City. With proper command and meticulous time management, the three major tribes, comprised solely of the elderly and the weak, could be dealt with today. Once these three formidable tribes were subdued, the remaining smaller tribes would be utterly intimidated and would offer little resistance. As dawn broke, Lord Green, clad in black leather armor adorned with embroidered marsh marigolds, stood atop a height, silently observing the soldiers assembling below. The square was bustling with noise and activity. Lord Green quickly discerned that the newly formed Thorn Legion, under the command of Aimpalo, was assembling at a remarkably swift pace. Once the Thorn Legion had completed their formation, Aimpalo meticulously inspected their equipment. Lord Green was well aware that nothing could be achieved overnight. However, he felt the time was right to convey a few essential training tips and pre-battle reminders to Aimpalo, which she executed with the utmost diligence. This is also a form of talent, or rather, the talent that Green most desires the commanders to possess at this moment. Green has a fondness for Aimparo's character and believes he can rely on him more in the future. Chapter 10. Ultimately Reclaiming Lost Grounds. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The Thorn Legion, comprising 120 men, unleashed a volley, the sound of arrows slicing through the air resounding incessantly. The successive barrage, as dense as a storm cloud, obscured the sky. Thud, thud, thud. The advancing savages were incessantly pierced by arrows, collapsing one after another amidst their anguished cries. The leaders of the savages, having never witnessed such a deluge of arrows from afar, shrieked in terror, urging their kin to hasten their advance. Nightma's son gazed at the death zone created by the volley, approximately 100 meters ahead, and was inwardly astonished. As the barrage reached 20 arrows, Green distinctly sensed a decline in the shooting speed of the Thorn Legion. Over 200 savages fell in the relentless onslaught, leading to chaos among their ranks, with a small faction disregarding their leader's frantic roars and retreating in panic. When the volley reached 25 arrows, dozens more fell, prompting a widespread rout among the savages. Green decisively commanded an end to the shooting. Nightma's son directed the 200 Kleber warriors, armed with shields, long swords, and spears, to advance upon the disintegrating savages. The Kleber warriors marched forward in unison, their morale soaring. The average experience of the Kleber soldiers exceeded 10 years, each a battle-hardened veteran. They were the elite troops who had survived the relentless skirmishes against the mountain savages for over a decade, stemming from Green's lineage. As the Kleber warriors advanced with their synchronized battle cries, the already terrified savages succumbed further to fear and chaos. Occasionally, a leader would gather a few followers to charge at the Kleber phalanx, only to be swiftly overwhelmed. In Green's eyes, these savages awaiting capture or surrender were merely his reserve subjects, and their performance today certainly justified their appellation as savages. To manage these individuals in the future, Green contemplated that the only feasible approach would be through stringent laws. He sighed, realizing it might even require meticulous regulation down to which foot to step out with first. The game of power was about to commence, and the military strength in his hands was the true trump card. To achieve swift results, the Kleber territory must transform into a grand encampment encompassing all subjects. Having confirmed a developmental path suitable for his domain, Green no longer hesitated. The Thorn Legion, having been established for only a few days, achieving 25 volleys was indeed impressive, and Aimparo had proven his leadership abilities. Among the resting Thorn Legion, some spearwomen inadvertently triggered a chain reaction. Green found himself at a loss for words, perhaps due to the heat. Bare-chested, perhaps? Chapter 11. Chaos is the stepping stone. In the banquet hall of Whispering City, long tables were arranged in the center and along both sides of the hall. The table was laden with greasy roasted meats and fresh fruits, accompanied by an array of beverages. As he observed the inexperienced maidens bustling about the hall, Green found his thoughts wandering elsewhere. The maidens were clad in long, blue, round-necked dresses that reached their calves. The traditional attire of the Whispering Castle's maids was excessively lengthy, prompting concerns that they might trip over their skirts or be trodden upon, potentially leading to a fall, while also easily collecting dust. Green privately dubbed these garments floor-dragging skirts. Disturbed by the sight of the maidens swaying before him day after day, Green, under the pretext of Lady Kalea, arranged for alterations to the length of the skirts amidst the numerous pressing matters at hand, shortening them to knee length and providing each of them with brown mid-calf soft leather shoes. Additionally, a headscarf was added, giving birth to the Kleber maid uniform. After these modifications, Glyn finally found the maidens more pleasing to the eye. The reason he invoked Kalea's name was that he feared that using his own name might lead to the incident of the skirt alteration spreading, resulting in him acquiring a shameful title such as Barren of Skirts, according to the customs of Westeros. Daenerys, descendant of Old Valyria, queen of the first men and the Undulls, ruler of Westeros and guardian of the realm. Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, the Unburnt, queen of Meereen, breaker of chains. Mother of dragons. Glyn, Baron of Skirts. Absolutely not. I refuse to accept it. The credit belongs to the inherently wise Kalea. Amidst the laughter, everyone continued to raise their goblets high, and the atmosphere in the hall grew increasingly vibrant. Glyn sat alone at the Lord's long table, with only Kalea, holding a jug of wine, attending to him. According to custom, the only companions allowed to sit at the Lord's table were family or esteemed guests. Glyn said, Kalea, place the jug here, and you should join the feast. Look over there, your friends are at that table. Kalea's small face showed considerable hesitation. Glyn smiled, reaching for the jug from her grasp. Go on, I will call for you if needed. Then I shall go take a look. I will return shortly. Not long after Kalea left, a slender and delicate pair of hands appeared within Glyn's line of sight, pouring wine for him. My lord, you are spoiling Kalea. Lady Solana, you always arrive just when I need you. I appreciate your recognition. If you could kindly reduce my workload a bit, I would be even more grateful. Chapter 12. The People's Longbowmen. A month later, beneath the cerulean sky, the sun hung high. Outside Whispering Castle, in the Thorn Legion's training grounds. With an expression of astonishment on Emperor's face, Glyn effortlessly drew back the string of his bow. The longbow in his hand was a specially crafted weapon with a draw weight of approximately 200 pounds. Whoosh! The arrow shot forth with a sound that sent shivers down the spine, leaving a profound impact. Rhaena stared in disbelief, her eyes wide, her expression frozen, her mouth agape in shock, resembling a wooden figure rooted to the spot. During the past month, Glyn has devoted a portion of each day to archery practice. His innate skill in archery was already commendable, and following his transition, Glyn's physical capabilities have continuously improved across the board. He senses that the day when he transforms into a transcendent marksman is drawing ever closer. The 200-pound longbow, custom-made by a craftsman at Glyn's behest, allows him to estimate an effective lethality range of approximately 300 meters. Beyond that distance, the arrow's penetrative power begins to decline sharply. After releasing his arrows, the deep-seated anxiety he harbored about the dragon has significantly diminished. Glyn is acutely aware of the terrifying nature of the dragon's flames in the later stages and is adamant about not witnessing the soldiers he has painstakingly trained being obliterated by mere breaths of fire from the dragon. He has meticulously studied the genealogy of the Clegane family and confirmed that there is no infusion of Targaryen dragon blood, rendering him incapable of taming a dragon. Since he has established that he cannot become a dragon rider, Glyn has resolved to become a dragon slayer instead. The rational Glyn is determined to devise strategies to avoid direct confrontations between his legion and the dragon. However, when evasion is impossible, he himself becomes the most formidable dragon hunter, aside from the cumbersome dragon hunting crossbow. While he can tolerate the existence of dragons, he is ever prepared to eradicate them should they pose a threat to his safety. At this moment, preparations commence. The carpenter will continue to craft bows with greater draw weights. As long as Glyn can wield them with agility, the more powerful the bow, the more satisfied he becomes. Applause and cheers ring out from those around him in admiration of the Lord's archery skills. Glyn discreetly instructs the carpenter to create another bow of similar power, ensuring that the thickness accommodates the design for future engravings, which must not compromise the bow's strength. The design will primarily feature marsh marigolds. Glyn intends to commonly employ a 200-pound draw-weight longbow, keeping anything exceeding that weight concealed for private practice. The standard Clegane longbow is rather plain in appearance. Thus, Glyn plans to carry an exquisite bow when he travels to King's Landing. Chapter 13. Never forgotten. In the Lord's Council Chamber in Whispering City, Lord Glyn, Sir Pell, Sir Mason, Scholar Owl, Steward Herschel, and Impa gather to deliberate on the Eastern Campaign aimed at reclaiming lost territories. A large map of the Eastern Crabclaw Peninsula is spread across the center of the table. Having nearly finalized the plan, Glyn ponders for a moment before speaking. The reclamation of old lands constitutes an expedition, and ensuring the supply of military provisions is paramount. At regular intervals, determined by standard marching speeds over half-day distances, we must establish encampments protected by wooden walls, advancing gradually. Gentlemen, the Clegane family has not engaged in long-distance campaigns outside our territory for over a decade. Historically, our battles have occurred in proximity to our lands. facilitating the replenishment of food and timely medical care for the wounded. Upon stepping outside, the atmosphere transformed. One was surrounded solely by adversaries lurking at every turn. Should the supply lines falter, it is conceivable that before even engaging in battle, we might collapse from within, effectively losing the conflict before it has commenced. As the commander, it is imperative to prioritize logistical support above all else, a lesson the leaders of the Clegane family must hold dear. The assembly responded solemnly. Yes, my lord. Pearl, your reconnaissance unit must depart at once to gather intelligence along the route. The unit must scout potential sites for the encampment, taking into account terrain and water sources among other considerations. In 3 days, I shall lead the army forth. Glyn rose, prompting the others to stand as well. He cast a slow, sweeping gaze over each individual, proclaiming, "Reclaim our lost territories. United we stand." Yes, reclaim our lost territories. United we stand. The fervor echoed. Reclaim our lost territories. United we stand. As the tactical meeting concluded and the others exited the chamber, only Butler Herschel remained to brief Glyn on the affairs of the domain. The matters at hand were numerous, and Herschel could only report them one by one. Glyn listened intently, when suddenly the door to the meeting hall swung open, revealing the tall figure of Celaena. Celaena bowed respectfully. "I apologize for the intrusion, my lord. I presumed the meeting had concluded." Glyn's composed gaze shifted to Celaena. "Is there an urgent matter, Celaena?" "Your cousin, Lady Lyanna Clegane," before Celaena could finish. Another tall figure appeared in the doorway. This slender individual bore a striking resemblance to Glyn, appearing to be Lyanna Clegane, as described by Celaena. As Glyn rose from his seat, the travel-worn Lyanna's pupils dilated, momentarily fixing her gaze upon Glyn's calm eyes before shifting to Celaena. Celaena seemed to grasp Lyanna's concern, offering a gentle, reassuring nod. Herschel stepped forward. "Miss Lyanna, do not fret excessively. The injustices you have endured shall be rectified by our Lord, and those who have wronged you will face retribution." Only then did Lyanna provide a clear response. "Glyn, thank you. I have never harbored such hatred for anyone. It is undeniable, as I refuse to divorce Usher. I sense he harbors murderous intent towards me. Otherwise, I would not have fled in haste. If possible, please eliminate him." Yet, Lyanna remained anxious. If he is killed, could it bring trouble to our family? After all, the nobles of the valley have always held animosity towards us. Glyn gently patted Lyanna's hand and returned to his seat. "If we remain indifferent, they will only mock the Clegane family for its cowardice. We all understand that the noble Clegane family will inevitably seek vengeance." Glyn scoffed, continuing, "Some may think the Clegane family could merely lodge a complaint with the Red Castle." The diminutive Clegane family, who had fallen out of favor with the king, found themselves in a position where the Red Keep, in an attempt to appease the sensitivities of the nobility, compelled them to compensate with a sum of gold dragons. This situation, while somewhat justifiable, reflected the underlying tensions. Are we not half-savage nobles? This could serve to validate their claims. The family's young lady had suffered indignities, and our anger, though distant, did not preclude thoughts of annihilation. Indeed, it seemed quite barbaric. Lyanna could not restrain her exclamation. "Could the repercussions of your actions be too great? Beyond my handmaiden. I see no one of my liking there. Will that old rogue Jon cause us trouble? Ultimately, it would depend on the prowess of our esteemed queen." In summary, the incident involved a noble lady marrying beneath her station and subsequently enduring humiliation, prompting her family to retaliate against the merchant's household. While the means of retribution may have been excessive, it is not entirely unfathomable. After all, the honor of the nobility in Westeros is sacrosanct. From Cersei's perspective, the degree of retaliation by Glyn may have been far gentler compared to the repercussions enacted by her father, Tywin Lannister, during the reign of Castamere. Glyn merely took advantage of circumstances, occasionally stirring minor troubles, which would likely instill greater confidence in the Clegane family by Queen Cersei. In his heart, Glyn had meticulously devised a plan, ensuring that those dispatched to carry out the task would neither reveal the Clegane family's identity nor leave conspicuous evidence. Those privy to the true circumstances would understand this was an act of vengeance from the Clegane family. Yet, as long as no clear evidence remained, Queen Cersei could navigate the situation with ease. Chapter 15. The power belonging to the king in this eastern campaign. Nearly all soldiers from the Clegane territory mobilized. With 100 Clegane soldiers, 400 Thorn legionnaires, 100 Clegane archers, and 200 Clegane spear wielders, a total of 800 warriors, complemented by 300 support troops responsible for military supplies. The total force reached 1,100. Such a large-scale expedition had not occurred in the Clegane lands for quite some time, and one could palpably sense the collective excitement. Though Glyn remained remarkably composed, Glyn, finding the spectacle somewhat beneath his notice, regarded the scale as merely a skirmish between villages. The fourth day of the march marked their first encounter after advancing eastward. Following a month of rigorous training, the Kleber archers had matured significantly. A series of synchronized volleys effectively repelled an assault from approximately 500 mountain savages. As dusk approached, however, some seasoned soldiers finally erupted in discontent. The relentless marching had already wearied them, and while they had secured victory, there was no wine to celebrate, nor camp followers to ease their spirits, and captives were off limits. It was not a matter of disloyalty to their lord, but rather a sudden upheaval of their customary ways bred dissatisfaction, frustration, and suppressed emotions, compounded by their inherently irascible natures, culminating in an outburst. Those raucous individuals failed to grasp that such behavior could potentially plunge the camp into chaos. Military orders are absolute. Glyn was acutely aware of the principle that mercy does not govern the military. Thus, he imposed even stricter discipline upon his soldiers to swiftly eradicate the detrimental habits that affected their combat effectiveness. Noticing unusual activity outside, Glyn grasped his whip and swiftly mounted his horse, seizing a soldier's spear along the way. Without hesitation, he hurled it at the most vociferous of the barbarian warriors. With a whoosh, the spear pierced through the chest of the barbarian, emerging from the back, its momentum propelling the body several meters away, ultimately embedding the spear deep into the ground, its tail still quivering. The soldiers gathered nearby felt a sudden constriction in their breaths, and an eerie silence enveloped them. The only sound remaining was the slow, rhythmic clatter of hooves. As Glyn gently tugged the reins, his horse moved deliberately through the throng, shaking its head. Glyn's gaze, devoid of emotion, swept over the crowd, exerting a weighty pressure akin to a great mountain, causing the soldiers to tremble and kneel before him. His voice rose above its usual timbre. "I have warned you, no gathering and clamoring in the camp. Look at me, behold your lord. The decrees I have proclaimed must be observed. To defy them is to offend your lord, and to offend the lord leads to but one outcome, death." In the relatively enclosed confines of the Crave fortress, the coalition of wild men began to retreat under the relentless rain of arrows from the club's longbowmen, failing to breach the formation of the club's spearmen. The mountain wind was biting and stung the skin. The air was thick with the scent of blood, and the wails of the dying echoed continuously. The slaughter must continue. One of the club's warriors caught up with a fleeing mountain barbarian. Gripping his longsword tightly, the warrior thrust it forcefully into the barbarian's armpit. The blade pierced through ribs and into the heart, and as he withdrew the sword, warm blood gushed forth. Knight Mason valiantly led the charge at the forefront. When faced with a barbarian charging at him with a spear, he effortlessly sidestepped, seizing the shaft of the spear with one hand, and swiftly swung his longsword, decapitating the barbarian with a single strike. The club's archers divided into groups of 20 to 30, executing their lethal tactics in unison. The pursuit of the barbarians unfolded as a one-sided massacre. After the battle, a torrential rain descended abruptly. Inside Glyn's tent, a rare moment of leisure found him engaged in cordial discussions with fellow commanders. Sir Pell, drenched from the downpour, hurried into the tent, his normally composed demeanor marred by a hint of agitation. He bowed respectfully before Glyn. "Good day, my lord." Glyn's eyes flickered, and his brow furrowed slightly. "Loyal Sir Pell, you have endured much. Is there urgent military news?" Glyn's calm voice sought to soothe Pell's anxious disposition. "Indeed, my lord. The Crave fortress has suddenly mobilized. They have contacted allied barbarian tribes, numbering at least 10,000. This is a declaration of war." Glyn, intrigued, accepted the challenge letter handed to him by Pell and cast a mocking glance at it. "Ah, the Blend family of terrifying Cave Castle? Has the Kleb family disturbed the tranquility of Crabclaw Peninsula? Indeed, the lands of the barony are lawless when conflicts of interest arise among the nobility. They fight without a second thought, disregarding the existence of the Red Fortress. According to the laws of the kingdom, nobles of the barony cannot engage in warfare against one another without a command from the Red Fortress." Rising, Glyn approached the table adorned with a large map, and the onlookers gathered around him, the atmosphere becoming increasingly tense. They did not wait long. Gazing at the map, Glyn extended his finger to a specific location. "Here. Crescent Valley. We shall crush them here." Crescent Valley lay approximately 20 miles northeast of Glyn's current encampment. The valley's entrance and exit spanned about 100 meters in width, while the interior was relatively spacious, flanked by steep cliffs. The valley's crescent shape inspired the cultured inhabitants of Crabclaw Peninsula to name it Crescent Valley. Chapter 17. Listening to the whispers of the cavern's Seagull Town as night approached. The largest square near the port of Seagull Town ignited a bonfire earlier than usual. A multitude of singers had gathered, harmonizing to a melody unfamiliar to many. The scale of the chorus was unprecedented, with their resonant voices enveloping the entire vicinity of the port, drawing in an ever-growing crowd. Some began to inquire about the title of the unfamiliar song, discovering it was called Listening to the Whispers of the Caverns, said to originate from across the strait from Crabclaw Peninsula. As the night deepened, the crowd, albeit reluctantly, began to disperse, yet the melody lingered in the air. Suddenly, a wave of gasps erupted from the crowd. To the west of Seagull Town, a towering inferno erupted, casting a crimson glow across the sky. The following day, the townsfolk learned that the blaze had consumed the estate of merchant Wushourmeka, with no survivors. Crabclaw Peninsula, the battlefield of the old club lands. Roar, roar, roar. Chanting in unison, the wild men, under the command of the Glyn family from terrifying Cave Castle, commenced their slow advance toward Green's formation. At a distance of 300 yards, Green drew his bow, and with a swift release, a knight plummeted from his steed. Emperor urged his horse back and forth at the front lines, shouting, "Steady, steady, await orders." Green loosed another arrow, and yet another knight fell to the ground, crashing into the advancing formation. After striking down 5 knights in succession, the enemy cavalry dismounted and led their horses into the ranks. At this juncture, the two sides were merely 200 yards apart. After felling the standard-bearer of the Glyn family, Green nodded slightly to Emperor. "Fall back, fall back, fall back." Emperor executed the command, and under the guidance of the club soldiers, the troops turned, retreating towards the entrance of Crescent Valley. The fluctuations on Green's side swiftly captured the enemy's attention, prompting them to hasten their advance. Everything was unfolding according to Green's meticulously crafted plan. Just as Green was about to spur his steed and join the retreating ranks, an unexpected occurrence transpired. A round figure, resembling a plump meatball, suddenly emerged onto the battlefield, brandishing a round shield and a raised warhammer, charging towards the armies of House Brun and the wildlings. Upon realizing Green's intent to escape, the enemy quickened their pace. Chapter 18. The semi-military farm. The formidable castle of horrors, perched on towering cliffs exceeding 40 meters in height, bore its sturdy gates firmly shut. Green resolutely abandoned his plan for a direct assault. He deemed the cost of breaching a well-fortified stronghold via conventional siege tactics to be excessively steep. The path to supremacy inevitably involved siege warfare, and without dragons, Green recognized the necessity of preparing unconventional strategies and methods for such endeavors. At present, he felt ill-equipped for a siege against castle horrors. Should an opportunity arise, he would seize it, but otherwise, he would abandon the pursuit without hesitation. Green reassured himself, reflecting that they were all impoverished lords, and there was no need for the destitute to make life difficult for one another. When challenged, one must respond resolutely with iron and blood, and when they yield in submission, it is imperative to lift them up with one's own hands. Otherwise, no one would be willing to pledge allegiance again. Recalling these words from memory, he turned to Sir Mason, saying, "Mason, the next steps are yours." The ransom for the captives of House Brun would follow the usual customs. Considering their past camaraderie as Targaryens in battle, he would grant them a reprieve this time, warning them that there would be no next opportunity. Mason nodded in acquiescence. Green then discreetly instructed Sir Pell, "The captives shall be delivered to Emperor for escort. Your reconnaissance unit is to remain and continue striking against the wildling tribes, particularly those allied with House Brun. As before, disrupt their settlements, and ensure the population is relocated. The old lands of the Kleb family require a substantial influx of farmers." The semi-military farms that Green envisioned would soon be implemented in the recently reclaimed territories of the Kleb family, with Sir Mason overseeing the initiative. As time progressed, these semi-military farms would proliferate across all arable lands in the eastern regions of Crabclaw Peninsula. "Understood, my lord," Sir Pell affirmed. Green nodded thoughtfully and continued, "The wildling tribes near the old lands of Kleb have been significantly weakened. There will be no fierce resistance henceforth. However, I still implore you to approach every battle with caution. When encountering skilled hunters, incorporate them into the reconnaissance unit, recruiting while simultaneously combating the wildlings. This presents a rare opportunity for training." "Pell, my lord, I shall adhere to your commands diligently." The Green family rode along, with Green shaking the reins as his steed moved to the side, Knight Pyre following closely behind. Riding in tandem, Green remarked, "Pyre, conversing with you always brings me ease." "Indeed," responded Tyrion with a hint of mockery. "Oh, brother, you are indulging in fanciful hopes. How can a Lannister dare to aspire to such ludicrous happiness? Our lifelong pursuit is boundless power." The tone of Tyrion shifted, imbued with sarcasm. Jaime, with a bitter expression, shrugged his shoulders. The two Lannister brothers fell into a contemplative silence. After a considerable pause, a handmaiden of Queen Cersei approached gracefully, bowing as she spoke. Sir Jaime, the Queen requests your presence. Tyrion interjected. Did my fragile sister forget to summon her most beloved brother? Your expression tells me that I have not received an invitation. With that, Tyrion leaped from the railing, adjusted his attire, and strode away, muttering, my sister's mood will only worsen upon seeing me. Farewell, dear brother. May my sister find happiness. After speaking, he turned his back to Jaime, raising his right hand in a dismissive gesture as he continued on his way. Jaime gazed at his brother's diminutive figure, sensing Tyrion's desolation, and opened his mouth to speak. Jaime understood that Tyrion possessed a kind heart. Cersei's disdain for Tyrion was no secret, yet Tyrion never truly harbored hatred for her. Instead, he longed for familial affection. Each time Cersei faced troubles, Tyrion's small shadow would linger nearby, always just out of sight. Jaime cherished his brother, but Cersei had loathed Tyrion since childhood. Jaime had tried to bridge the gap, but to no avail. Now, he merely hoped that the relationship between Cersei and Tyrion would not deteriorate further for his sake. In the Red Keep, within the Queen's chambers, Cersei sat before her vanity, seemingly unperturbed by the scars marring her visage. She lifted her chin slightly, a cold smile gracing her lips as she said, Jaime, I want you to kill Robert. Jaime's heart jolted, and he placed his hands on Cersei's delicate shoulders. Cersei, I understand your anger, but we must not act impulsively. Robert is the king, and I am a member of the Kingsguard. Cersei, in a fit of rage, shoved Jaime away, as though she had heard the most absurd of notions. Regicide Jaime, are you speaking to me of the Kingsguard's duties? Upon hearing the word regicide, Jaime's hand clenched slightly, a flash of anger crossing his features. Suppressing his fury, Jaime spoke softly, Cersei, you must not act rashly. Killing Robert is not an easy task, and a misstep could bring disaster upon the Lannisters. Father will not spare us. The mention of their father momentarily quelled Cersei's fury. The mere glance from the old lion, Tywin Lannister, conjured memories that rendered me breathless, memories I had believed had faded since becoming queen. Yet, I found they lingered still. Chapter 20. The power bestowed by blood. The contingent consisted of 50 soldiers, 50 sets of plate armor, 30 shields, 50 longswords, 20 spears, 30 longbows, 30 warhorses, 3 physicians, 3 grooms, 1 barber, and 3 maidservants. The steward overseeing these attendants was Celaena. This delineates the scale of the expedition to the Red Keep. The total expenses for the merchant vessel bound for the Red Keep amounted to 52 golden dragons, a transaction arranged by Steward Herschel with the merchants, who agreed to settle with furs of equivalent value. The absence of immediate payment in gold brought some solace to Glyn, who reflected on the necessity of preparing his own seafaring vessel, for the current state of Mermaid Harbor saw an average of 12 merchant ships docking daily. A far cry from the initial desolation, hinting at the port's gradual resurgence. Glyn had organized everything within his capacity. The remainder would rely on the slow passage of time to accumulate. My lord, Steward Herschel, along with several merchants, confirmed that the local price for Unsullied in Astapor is 100 golden dragons, excluding transportation costs. Unsullied. Glyn recalled instructing Herschel to inquire about the price from the merchants with whom he had established rapport. At this moment, Glyn felt a waning enthusiasm for the Unsullied compared to his earlier fervor. Post-war, the integration of the mountain tribes by the Klebs was far more successful than anticipated. Glyn was quite pleased with the mountain tribesmen acquired at no cost. Fierce and robust, they transformed into warriors upon receiving arms. Once adequately fed and clad, their loyalty surged. With enhanced training and discipline, they became formidable soldiers. At 100 golden dragons per unit, acquiring 10 Unsullied would total 1,000 golden dragons. If securing 100, Daenerys Targaryen could effortlessly command 8,000 Unsullied, equivalent to 800,000 golden dragons. The thought of obtaining the treasuries of several major free cities with such ease stirred a sense of envy within Glyn towards the Klebs, who had shed blood for House Targaryen. The Klebs were exemplary loyalists to the Targaryens, yet post-usurper war, they had endured years of oppression from the Red Keep. At an opportune moment, Glyn considered orchestrating a scheme to extract golden dragons from Daenerys, a means to soothe his wounded spirit. Ah, I see, Celaena. How has Lyanna been faring lately? Following the news from Seagull Town, Miss Lyanna secluded herself in her chamber for an entire day. Since then, her demeanor has remained notably improved. I sense she feels secure here, placing great trust in you. Please keep a watchful eye on her. Chapter 21. Arrival at King's Landing. Varys clasped his hands together, with a capricious queen and a valorous Barren by her side. We may quietly relish the rare spectacle that is King's Landing. Petyr Baelish's gaze shifted. My Lord of Whisperers, you seem troubled by something. As long as King Robert sits firmly upon the Iron Throne, there shall be no irreparable calamities. Thus, I sleep soundly each night. A sigh escaped him. The premise of your words sends a chill down my spine. With only coins as my companion, I find myself increasingly anxious about unforeseen events. For tonight, I shall not sleep peacefully. Varys nodded in apology. I sincerely apologize, Master of Coin. I merely lamented the current state of King's Landing, inadvertently causing you unease. My tongue has lost its sweetness, exuding disquiet. Petyr Baelish instinctively sensed the peril emanating from Varys, a danger he had previously overlooked. Silent contemplation enveloped him as he pondered the ulterior motives hidden within Varys's statements, though his facade remained unaffected. Merely a jest. I regret my lack of humor. I must await my audience with Duchess Aelin. Good day to you. An elegant smile graced Petyr's features as he bid farewell to Varys. The thoughts of this rootless man were most elusive. Today was no mere chance encounter, and Petyr resolved to heighten his vigilance against Varys. Varys quietly observed Petyr's departing figure, his smile gradually fading. Clang, clang, clang. Green stood at the bow of the ship, gazing at the towering King's Landing and the imposing Red Keep. Melodies from a past life swirling in his mind. After 3 days and 2 nights of navigation, King's Landing lay before them. Many in the company exhibited signs of seasickness, keeping the 3 physicians from Clybber quite occupied. Transporting soldiers from Whispering Town to King's Landing by sea was the most efficient route, as overland travel required traversing numerous territories, consuming both time and effort. The soldiers, inexperienced at sea, were prone to widespread seasickness, necessitating preemptive training to mitigate any impact on their combat readiness. The eastern regions of the Crab's Claw Peninsula required further consolidation. Thereafter, Green's plan was to advance westward, aiming to secure the western territories under the influence of Crow's Perch. Ideally, he would first operate under the guise of the Guardian of the Crab's Claw Peninsula, rendering his westward advance legitimate. The merchant vessel carrying Green entered the Blackwater River from Blackwater Bay, docking at the bustling Riverside Gate, locally known as Mudgate. Chapter 22. A Heart Yearning for Peace? Green did not anticipate encountering pivotal characters on his first day in King's Landing. A thought crossed his mind. There cannot be so many coincidences in this world. At this moment, the Lannister family still appeared as a loving unit. Was Tyrion conducting an early reconnaissance for Cersei? Tyrion Lannister's public address at the tavern elicited raucous cheers from the patrons. His squire tossed a bag brimming with golden dragons towards the tavern keeper. In Green's view, Tyrion, amidst the loud expressions of gratitude from the crowd, stood tall, responding with a semblance of modesty. It is now the year 297 of the Westerosi calendar. In the month of September, the vibrant maiden Daenerys is presumably residing with her brother in the abode of the governor of Pentos, Illyrio Mopatis, on the Essos continent. Meanwhile, the future hand of the queen, Tyrion, is extravagantly indulging himself on the Westerosi mainland, reveling in the pleasures of life. Life is indeed wondrous. Tyrion playfully leapt into the chair opposite Green, while his squire placed 2 empty goblets before them, subsequently filling them with wine from a jug. Tyrion raised his goblet in a subtle gesture towards Green, took a sip, and, savoring the moment, remarked, "This Dornish summer red, imbued with fruity aromas and a sweet palate, is my utmost favorite." With a grin, he continued, "Each sip is akin to tasting the fragrance of a maiden, leaving an everlasting aftertaste." Green smiled in response, placing his hand on his chest and nodding. "Good night, Lord Tyrion Lannister." Leaning back in his chair with goblet in hand, Tyrion mused, "Has my renown already echoed throughout the peninsula? I am unexpectedly honored." Green sampled the summer red, this time without wrinkling his brow, finding it quite pleasant. "In the memories of my childhood, whenever I resisted sleep, my mother would invoke your name to frighten me. You were a shadow of my youth. Upon growing older, I learned that it was merely a kind lie from her. Thus, recognizing you comes as no surprise." "Ah, indeed, that must be a lamentable recollection." Green chuckled, seemingly reflecting. "My homeland feels exceedingly distant." Tyrion, without hesitation, reached for a piece of roasted meat from the platter and began to chew, suddenly inquiring, "Are you not concerned about the king's hand?" Green shook his head. The great ones seldom pay heed to a mere insignificant. Tyrion raised his goblet once more. "At your age, I often dreamed of one day possessing my own dragon. Is this your burden of inheriting the family legacy? My legs are too short, yet my head is disproportionately large. At least this head suits me well, for it allows me to discern my capabilities and limitations. My greatest weapon. Jaime possesses his sword. King Robert has his war hammer, While Chapter 23, visionary suggestions in an effort to enhance his credibility, Scholar Al, from Whispering City, meticulously recounted the details of the Clegane family's campaign to reclaim their former lands to the Citadel. Al was not intentionally divulging Clegane's secrets. Rather, it stemmed from his habitual academic rigor and a hint of pride. The lords of Crabclaw Peninsula have always been valiant, yet they lack scholarly knowledge. From the moment Green learned to read, it was Scholar Al who taught him, and the elder enjoyed reminiscing, now feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. Scholar Al's erudition is considerable, but he is not a military leader. Inadvertently, he has leaked a fragment of intelligence. Under the guidance of Scholar Al's quill, the Clegane campaign is rendered with artistic flair, yet the nobles of Westeros, barring a few discerning individuals, scoff at it, dismissing it as mere barbarian skirmishes. I could do that too. Samwell, the eldest son of Randor, was one of the few earnest individuals eager to gain his father's approval. The contents articulated by Bachelor Al would undergo further simplification upon their arrival at the Citadel, subsequently relayed to the friendly lords of Westeros. Within the confines of Randor's Hornhill, only Samwell, engrossed in his daily readings, noticed this and even implored the Citadel scholars to procure a more detailed original text. Under Randor's imposing presence, Samwell often faltered in his speech, which only served to heighten Randor's disdain for him. "Father, I have researched the military strategies of House Clegane," Samwell ventured, but Randor appeared to disregard him. Samwell pressed on, summoning what little courage he had to offer counsel to his father. "I have consulted numerous sources. The wildlings of the Crabclaw Peninsula are innate warriors, formidable in their own right. It is noteworthy that Baron Green managed to defeat them with a mere handful of soldiers. His tactics deserve attention. His military prowess, akin to that of our esteemed Randor, is commendable. During the War of the Usurper, his forces inflicted the only defeat on Robert Baratheon at the Battle of the Weirwood. Randor Tarly, though straightforward and stern, possessed an iron will and keen intellect, having been esteemed by Kevin Lannister as the most capable individual to conclude the wars of Westeros after Tywin Lannister's demise. Naturally, Randor had perused the reports concerning the battles on the Crabclaw Peninsula, lamenting only that his eldest son was timid while his youngest was still too young. Samwell's discourse was abruptly interrupted by Randor. "What purpose does your research serve? When you meet the enemy on the battlefield, do you believe you can vanquish Clegane? Or do you fancy yourself braver than the fearless wildlings? When faced with the roar of warhorses, can you still maintain your grip on the sword?" Leave. Chapter 24. The Queen's Affairs in the Red Keep. Within the Queen's chambers, the curtains embroidered with golden threads fluttered gently in the breeze. Cersei Lannister reclined in a golden bath, her shoulders rising above the water's surface, droplets glimmering on her collarbone in the sunlight. Tap, tap, tap. Jaime did not conceal his footsteps, confidently stepping into Cersei's line of sight. The Queen, stirring her satin-like golden hair, exuded a captivating allure. "Have you finally deemed it time to conclude your warm brotherly banter?" she teased. Jaime furrowed his brow. "Cersei, he is concerned for you. You should be grateful." He refrained from uttering Tyrion's name in her presence, choosing instead to refer to him indirectly. Cersei scoffed, mocking, "I am the daughter of the old lion, the Queen. You both presume too much. I possess my own judgment. I require no guidance from others on how to act. You need only bow and obey." Rising from the bath, Cersei lifted her chin defiantly as she regarded Jaime. He sighed inwardly, reluctant to engage in yet another fruitless argument, and reached for a burgundy robe, approaching to drape it over her shoulders. Cersei finally allowed a satisfied smile to grace her lips as she walked barefoot to the side and took a sip of red wine from her glass. Holding the glass elegantly, her beautiful eyes seemed to shimmer with light. "Has that dullard uncovered anything of worth?" Jaime spread his hands in a gesture of mild acknowledgement. "It's not bad. It's worth courting." Cersei scoffed. "Humph. For such trivial intelligence, you conversed for so long. I genuinely worry for the future of House Lannister. You are all so obtuse. I had already gleaned this information from Lord Green's letters, which have delayed me significantly." Jaime, unwilling to convey Tyrion's original words to Cersei, knew it would only worsen the situation. Out of a knight's honor, he refrained from maliciously misrepresenting others. Stating it was merely not bad was the utmost praise he could offer at that moment. Jaime shrugged. "Shall we arrange a meeting at once?" Cersei, slightly irked, replied Jaime. "Very well, I have not forgotten, nor can I forget. You reminded me that everything must be done above board. I shall first see if there is a suitable position for him in the Red Keep. What was to be a simple audience has turned into a more complicated affair because you chose to heed someone's slander. I am tolerating this because of you, Jaime. In King's Landing, Dragonstone, and the Green Study, More than a week had passed since Green departed from Whispering City. Today, a raven from Herschel delivered the first report from the Kleb territory. A small detachment of 30 men from the Thorn Brigade was ambushed at night by a small band of wildlings during a solo mission, resulting in 23 casualties. Chapter 25. Green ponders the reasons. In the free city-state of Pentos, within the governor's mansion, radiant sunlight flowed like water, with a few wispy clouds drifting gently in the breeze. The future mother of dragons, Daenerys Targaryen, knelt in the corner of her bedroom, her delicate arms weakly shielding her body. Upon her arrival in Pentos, Governor Illyrio Mopatis had gifted her a gown of pale blue gauze. The craftsmanship of the gown was exquisite. It was both beautiful and cool against her skin, a gift that Daenerys cherished dearly. Yet, at this moment, her most beloved dress was being torn into pieces by her only kin, her volatile brother Viserys Targaryen, and they lay scattered around her. Daenerys' thick silver hair curled with a chaotic elegance, her violet eyes glistening with tears, filled with sorrow at this painful moment. Her skin was as pale as milk, and her petite, exquisite form resembled that of an ethereal sprite. The handmaiden, nursing her own painful abdomen, struggled to rise and compassionately wrapped Daenerys in a blanket. Daenerys, her sorrowful eyes meeting the handmaiden's, spoke. "Are you all right? I'm sorry. I feared I could not protect you, yet you were injured while trying to protect me." The handmaiden shook her head, offering comfort. "Your Grace, I am unharmed. Allow me to assist you." Daemon Targaryen, the elder brother of Daenerys, is the second son of the Mad King Aerys II Targaryen and Queen Rhaella Targaryen, who styles himself as Aegon III Targaryen. Following the War of Usurpation, the surviving Targaryen, Daemon fled the continent of Westeros with his sister Daenerys, proclaiming himself king of Westeros. He traversed the free cities, seeking allies and financial support while evading pursuers, enduring neglect and disdain, and was ultimately compelled to sell his mother's crown, earning him the derisive title of the Beggar King. After parting with his mother's crown, Daemon's temperament grew increasingly volatile. Daenerys longed for the brother of her childhood, the boy who regaled her with tales of the Seven Kingdoms and painted visions of a splendid life upon ascending the throne. She yearned for the brother enshrined in her memories to return to her side. On the day following the receipt of her royal appointment, Green unusually donned gleaming silver plate armor, draping a blue cloak embroidered with the family crest. His companion, Montan, clad in full armor and bearing a large round shield, stood as his protector. The guards at the gates of the Red Keep, upon viewing Green's appointment letter, merely inquired briefly before granting them passage, allowing Green and Montan to enter the Red Keep unsearched, weapons unconfined. Chapter 26. The charming officials in the Megiddo Hall, also known as the Queen's Tower. They traversed in silence for several minutes before finally reaching their destination. At a subtle nod from Jaime, Green expressed his gratitude and entered. Jaime's figure vanished, and within the hall, Green discerned a scattered congregation of individuals. A rough count suggested a dozen or so people. Some who noticed Green greeted him with polite nods. Observing discreetly, Green noted several common characteristics among the crowd. They were all remarkably youthful and handsome, likely around 20 years of age, judging by the crests on their garments. They hailed predominantly from the Westerlands and the Reach, with the former being more prevalent. "Do not tell me these individuals are the Queen's officials," Green mused. Their striking appearances could easily incite rumors. At least on the surface, they resembled a retinue of paramours. Jaime is present every day. Surely Queen Cersei is not that desperate? In the hall, amidst the sounds that reached his ears, Green recognized one individual. With golden brown hair, pale green eyes, and a handsome countenance, he bore a resemblance to Jaime, albeit lacking his commanding presence. It was Lancel Lannister, the eldest son of Kevan Lannister, colloquially known as the Cupbearer. "Lancel, congratulations." "Lancel, I find myself somewhat envious of you." Indeed. To serve His Majesty as a cupbearer, your prospects are boundless." Indeed. "Hush, Duke Aelin's health is deteriorating. Perhaps Lancel is destined to become the future hand of the king." "Indeed, only the most trustworthy individuals may serve as attendants to His Majesty, King Robert." Amidst the flattery of the crowd, Lancel maintained an appropriately measured smile, exuding elegance. Green stroked his chin, reflecting on the spirited Lancel, who was poised to become King Robert's attendant, a far cry from the timorous figure he would later become under the king's scorn. Ordinarily, one in such a position would expect a smooth career ahead within the Red Keep. Unfortunately, King Robert was not a man to be judged by conventional standards. He reduced what appeared to be a promising future for his royal attendant to the role of a mere cupbearer. At the opportune moment, Green approached. "Good day, Lord Lancel." Lancel turned his gaze toward Green and gently shook his head, Good day to you. Lancel then noticed the marigold emblem of House Clegane on Green's attire and suddenly exclaimed, Baron Green of House Clegane? Green nodded. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation and felt compelled to extend my congratulations. Chapter 27. The Royal Hunt Route in the Megiddo, the Queen's Hall. Queen Cersei sat regally at the head of the long table, flanked by Jaime and the officials. Initially, Green felt a flicker of interest, but as the discussions unfolded, he found himself drifting into boredom. At recent banquets, the Dornish summer red had become increasingly prevalent, overshadowing the wines of the arbor. Indeed, summer red was gaining popularity. The ladies of Highgarden's sleeveless gowns were now nearly ubiquitous among the noble women of King's Landing. It was also noted that Count Genos had purchased an entire box of Highgarden jewels to please his new paramour. Count Genos, whose full name was Genos Sterling, was the commander of the city guard, the Gold Cloaks. One might wonder which unfortunate maiden could endure Genos' froggy visage. He resembled a barrel. Was Genos still extorting golden dragons from his subordinates? Naturally, one cannot teach an old dog new tricks. Alas, he enjoyed the unwavering trust of His Majesty, commanding 6,000 gold cloaks. It was a pity for the young women. He could only pursue a bastard daughter. For what legitimate daughter would look favorably upon the son of a butcher? Perhaps not, as one hears, though it is merely hearsay, thus it remains a rumor. As the officials' chatter veered into gossip, Jaime cleared his throat at an opportune moment. Green found his perspective on these colleagues shifting slightly upon closer inspection. There was indeed a wealth of valuable information embedded within their discussions, which also served as the Queen's fashion advisory. Jaime then spoke. Let us continue our previous discussion. Your Majesty, in past years, the hunts in King's Landing have always commenced through the Steel Gate, and this time should remain unchanged. A sudden hush fell over the assembly. For the first time since the meeting began, Queen Cersei broke the silence. Why is no one speaking? Are those commoners still spreading rumors? Lancel cast a glance around and remarked, according to tradition, this would alleviate numerous troubles. Spreading rumors brings joy. Yet recklessly altering the route out of the city would only serve their purpose and tarnish the reputation of our esteemed queen. Cersei's lips curled into a satisfied smile. Lancel, please continue. Nodding, Lancel clenched his fists. We have merely 8 days. My counsel is to impose severe punishment on the purveyors of falsehoods. Only through the heads that roll will people understand that our noble queen is not to be slandered lightly. From his vantage point, Tyrion observed Lancel's thighs quivering slightly after his statement. Was this to curry favor with Cersei, or was it truly her sentiment? Jaime held a dissenting opinion. The entire Queen's District. Chapter 28. The 8th day of fever. The meeting in the Queen's Hall continued. Tyrion waited for silence to descend before addressing the council again. Returning to the proposal put forth by Lord Lancel regarding the execution of wrongdoers, he found Lancel's eager gaze somewhat intolerable, harboring a quiet disdain for this Lannister youth. Ignoring Jaime's displeased look, Tyrion continued. We must indeed make examples of a number of individuals, and the quantity cannot be trifled with. The Queen's authority must not be easily trampled. Before Jaime could interject, Tyrion met his gaze. If we do not handle this matter properly, there will be more insidious rats lurking in the shadows to continue maligning our queen. Cersei rolled her eyes at Jaime, secretly urging him to refrain from speaking further. Proceed, she commanded. Tyrion nodded at Cersei with a heart of impartiality. We shall undertake actions that are just and above board. We can utilize this righteous facade to fulfill our objectives. Lord Jaime, the Queen's District is among the most impoverished regions of King's Landing. The chaos there begs the question, how many individuals deserving of execution do you believe reside there? Jaime instinctively clenched his fist, responding gravely. I concede that there are many heinous criminals, yet I must ask how we distinguish the rumor mongers. And how do we prevent a riot sparked by executions? Jaime had witnessed the terror of riots, akin to hell on earth, where innocent civilians would bear the greatest suffering. He possessed a knight's compassion. He feared not the act of killing, but rather the potential chaos that could ensue, further jeopardizing Cersei's safety. Tyrion's tone remained calm. My lord, we must first unify our stance on who deserves execution. The issue of riots is a concern for later. He scanned the assembly of officials and stated solemnly, certainly. The purveyors of falsehoods are not confined to the most nefarious in the Queen's District. However, the most egregious offenders within that area are indeed among those who spread rumors. The blades we wield must be sufficiently sharp, instilling fear in the hearts of the wicked towards the Queen's iron will. It is this trepidation that will ensure they think twice, and this outcome is our ultimate aim. After a moment of silence, some appeared enlightened, others sighed in resignation. While a few remained deep in thought, ultimately nodding in agreement. Cersei's beautiful eyes regarded Tyrion's youthful face with a subtle nod of approval. James was nearly persuaded. Yet he was reluctant to let Green off easily. He cast a sidelong glance at Green and inquired, "What about the riots?" Green maliciously remarked on James's pettiness. Having grown accustomed to being the kingpin in Clegane, Green nearly succumbed to the habitual urge to rap his knuckles against the table, but thankfully restrained himself. The current outbreak of disease in the Queen's district provided a convenient pretext. Under the guise of Princess S' intent to treat the area, they could effectively quarantine it, isolating it from King's Landing. In the interim, while awaiting a concrete implementation plan, Green interjected with due respect, placing his right palm over his heart and scrutinizing the others with utmost seriousness. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a war. I beg your pardon, but the principles of secrecy before battle dictate that certain crucial matters are not suitable for open discussion here. The Red Keep harbors no secrets." In his aspiration to stand out among the multitude of officials, Green understood that he could not please everyone. His final statement, while not wholly satisfying to all, was sufficient. Queen Cersei rose from her seat, prompting the others to follow suit and direct their attention toward her. Her enchanting gaze swept over her officials, and with a slight tilt of her chin, Cersei nodded, turned, and commanded, "Baron Green, accompany me upstairs." Chapter 29. For the Knight's Compassion and Justice, the Red Keep. Maegor's Holdfast, 3rd floor. James had been guarding outside the door for nearly an hour. This chamber was Cersei's preferred venue for confidential matters, its wooden door providing excellent soundproofing, rendering the conversations within inaudible from the outside. For reasons unknown, James shifted his position as if to press his ear against the heavy door. He quickly halted this movement, forcing a smile and shaking his head, as if mocking his own momentary folly. Straightening his posture, he gripped the hilt of his sword tightly with his right hand, while his left hand flicked the white cloak behind him. After another hour, the door finally creaked open, and Green emerged from the room. He nodded naturally toward James. "My Lord James, thank you once again for guiding me today. Farewell." Green bid his farewell with polite formality. James raised an eyebrow, his lips twisting into a strained smile. "Allow me to escort you." "Please, no." Green attempted to decline. Before Green could respond, James, with a flourish of his cloak, turned and strode forward, leaving Green with no choice but to acquiesce to his company. The two descended the staircase side by side, passing through the Queen's Hall before exiting Maegor's Holdfast. As they descended, the perceptive Green sensed that James seemed inclined to speak. Although Green did not fully comprehend James's inexplicable animosity towards him, he recognized the futility of being overly proactive. Having expended considerable mental effort to persuade Queen Cersei earlier, he chose to feign ignorance. Upon seeing Monton waiting at the entrance, Green merely waved his hand for him to follow. He remained silent. Monton, with his usual vacant expression, nodded dumbly, rubbed his belly, and trailed behind Green. Finally, James slowed his pace and cleared his throat. James deliberately cleared his throat, casting a sidelong glance at Green, who was walking beside him. Upon hearing the sound, Green turned his head to meet James's gaze, a look of curiosity appearing on his face. "What do you intend to do?" "I shall keep it confidential." Green did not respond immediately. Instead, he directed his gaze forward once more. Their footsteps did not falter as James spoke. "My lord, I comprehend your concerns. In truth, I have no fondness for bloodshed." This sentiment had been conveyed to James by Tyrion, and he found it agreeable, though it was their first encounter. James sensed that Green was not a bloodthirsty individual, a judgment befitting an experienced knight. James nodded slightly. "Is it not due to the battlefield reports that you suspect an excessive penchant for slaughter?" "Nonsense," Green thought, unwilling to further speculate on the reasons behind James's inexplicable animosity towards him. "My Lord James, might you consider an alternative approach?" Chapter 30. The Cycle of Life. Shortly after Green returned to his residence in the Hookport with Monton, the Queen's attendant, accompanied by several Lannister guards, delivered 20 bags of gold dragons, each containing 100 dragons, totaling 2,000, a quintessentially Lannister gesture. The attendant also conveyed a message, indicating that Lady Cersei was not concerned with how Green would utilize this sum, but she expected a splendid outcome. Quite so, very much in the Lannister spirit. Green resolved to exercise caution and initially retain half of the sum. His thoughts first turned to his subjects, akin to a laborer who, upon receiving wages from his employer, immediately considers his family back home. After securing the gold, Green sat at the table, stroking his chin thoughtfully. He promptly arranged for a swift rider to head to the Clegane estate outside the city, urgently summoning 20 soldiers from his clan to enter the city at his behest. Green felt a twinge of regret at the limited number of soldiers he had brought, Yet he understood that plans often succumb to unforeseen changes. The situation unfolded more favorably than Glyn had anticipated. Arriving in King's Landing without an official position at the Red Keep, bringing too many soldiers could invite scrutiny, a scenario he wished to avoid. With an official role now established within the Red Keep, along with a new assignment, he could request reinforcements from the Whispering City. Glyn's slender fingers tapped rhythmically on the tabletop for a moment. Within King's Landing, Cersei's Lannister guards numbered approximately 300. He could not afford to be overly hasty. Stepping cautiously, he resolved to first summon 50 soldiers from his domain. Having drafted the troop requisition letter, Glyn sealed it with wax and affixed his seal. Lacking a messenger raven at present and being unfamiliar with other nobles capable of sending one in King's Landing, he arranged for someone to deliver the letter to the Red Keep, seeking James's assistance in dispatching a raven. In the Queen's district of King's Landing, time was of the essence. That afternoon, under the guise of an inspection, Glyn personally patrolled the Queen's district with his guards while discreetly gathering urgently needed intelligence. As he traversed the area, Glyn observed numerous courtyards that had long been abandoned, now on the verge of becoming ruins. Gazing at these vacant spaces, he lamented the bygone splendor of the Queen's district. After completing the inspection, Glyn promptly requisitioned several spacious courtyards in the Queen's district, selecting one as his temporary command post and arranging for it to be tidied up overnight. The following day, at dawn, as the first light began to break, Jaime and Bronn arrived with 100 Lannister guards at Glyn's makeshift headquarters. In the courtyard, a large pot simmered, releasing an enticing aroma of meat, while Monten squatted nearby, occasionally swallowing in anticipation. Jaime and Glyn exchanged the Lannister guards with succinct clarity before stepping into the courtyard and taking their seats beside the pot. Chapter 31. Glyn understands me. Glyn hesitated. In pursuit of strength and understanding the unfolding narrative, he chose to momentarily align himself with Queen Cersei's faction for his own pragmatic interests. Indeed, nothing in King's Landing transpires without reason, regardless of magnitude. The disruption of the relationship between the king and queen was driven by hidden instigators with considerable ambition, and the players had already begun to maneuver beneath the surface before the plot truly commenced. Those who stood to gain from such affairs inherently proved their own prowess, becoming genuine players in the game of power or part of a coalition driven by individual ambitions. Glyn speculated on the families most likely involved, deliberately adopting an evasive demeanor. He instructed Monten to serve him a plate of stewed meat. He awkwardly avoided Jaime's piercing gaze. Monten presented a plate laden with meat, offering it to Glyn with a flourish. As Glyn savored the tender lamb, lowering his eyelids in pleasure, the fatigue from hours of exertion seemed to dissipate in an instant. Jaime sensed that Glyn had caught on to something and wished to press further, but Glyn was evidently evasive. Noticing how much Glyn was enjoying his meal, Jaime felt a flicker of irritation. "You little wildling, are you going to eat all of that without offering to entertain your guest?" Glyn appeared genuinely surprised and, after swallowing his mouthful, replied, "Do Lannisters also partake in stewed lamb?" Jaime laughed in disbelief. "What do you expect? Do you think Lannisters dine on gold?" Glyn chuckled heartily and instructed Monten to promptly serve food to Ser Jaime. Upon receiving his meal, Jaime momentarily shed his usual composure. Taking a large bite of the stew and chewing thoughtfully, he was somewhat taken aback. The unassuming dish surpassed his expectations in flavor. After a time, Jaime spoke, "Baron Glyn, it is clear I lack the necessary acuity. If you have discerned something, I hope you will confide in me. I could even keep it secret from Cersei. As a favor owed to you, Lannisters repay their debts." Glyn's ears perked up, as if he had heard the faint clinking of golden dragons. After a moment of contemplation, his expression grew complex, and with a soft sigh, he commanded, "Monten, take the meat and maintain vigilance around us. Ensure nothing approaches this vicinity. Anything." The astute Monten instantly grasped Glyn's directive, quickly gathering a pile of meat, rising to leave, and signaling to the guards in the distance to establish a perimeter for their security. Glyn lifted the chair and positioned it closer to where Ser Jaime sat, then resumed his seat. "Ser Jaime, I sense the ominous black net cast over our queen. It looms above Lady Cersei, concealed within the depths of the night. Imperceptible, yet undeniably impactful." Jaime's pupils dilated as the fog obscuring his vision was dispelled by Glyn's words. In Chapter 32, under Glyn's dominion of the Queen's district, Jaime pondered the identity of the puppet master, casting suspicion upon all. Unable to restrain himself, he inquired, "Have you discerned who it might be?" Glyn refrained from disclosing the answer, understanding the potential chaos that could ensue. In his infatuation, Jaime might resort to violence. while the cautious Green felt compelled to deeply align himself with House Lannister for his own safety. At this juncture, Green's choice to ally with Cersei stemmed from the power and gold she could bestow upon him. King Robert's oppressive tactics could reduce a spirited Lannister to a docile youth. Yet such methods bore no effect on Cersei. Though you constantly berate, strike, and insult me, I, Lady Cersei, remain unafraid of you, and I shall not hesitate to retaliate should the opportunity present itself. Her hardened resolve, unyielded by intimidation, was perhaps one of Cersei's few redeeming qualities. As long as King Robert and Duke Jon occupied the Red Keep, Glyn Clegane, a former loyal servant of House Targaryen, would remain cautious. He feared the day they might take an interest in him, recognizing that his weakness was both a disadvantage and a potential asset. If Lady Cersei chose to shield Green, the Red Keep would not risk offending the Queen over someone deemed insignificant. Cersei's unique disposition might lead her to confront challenges head-on, rendering such a risk unworthy. This was the narrow space where Green could navigate and flourish. Jaime, being Cersei's closest confidant and most trusted ally, held considerable sway. Green initially believed he could indirectly influence Jaime through Tyrion. However, given Jaime's initial reception of him, Green acknowledged that his efforts to influence Jaime had evidently failed. Henceforth, he could not afford to grow too close to Tyrion, for Cersei harbored a deep-seated animosity towards him. Green remained patient and meticulous, determined to untangle these intricate social dynamics. He understood that he sought to sail upon Queen Cersei's ship, not that of House Lannister. Rubbing his temples, he spoke, "There is no evidence. Thus, all we possess are mere suspicions, Sir Jaime." Groundless doubts could render the Queen surrounded by enemies. Jaime felt a profound frustration at his impotence. "What you say is valid. I must maintain a facade of normalcy, lest I inadvertently aid our foes." Green nodded in agreement. "Sir Jaime, you have uncovered the conspiracy with keen eyes. It is merely a matter of time before we catch the rats lurking in the shadows. The conspiracy that has been uncovered ceases to be a threat, provided one remains sufficiently vigilant." Chapter 33. Another valorous warrior joins on the 5th day of his endeavors in the Queen's District. Green received support from Light Whisper City, which had finally arrived in King's Landing. This contingent of 50 men consisted entirely of the clansmen from Kleb, brought over by Monton from the docks along the Blackwater River. The Crabclaw Peninsula shares similarities with the north, as its inhabitants are predominantly descendants of the first men, characterized by their tall and robust physiques, with hair and eyes commonly in shades of black or brown. The Undulls predominantly exhibit a variety of hair and eye colors. The peoples of Westeros comprise the First Men, the Undulls, and the Rhoynish. The First Men chiefly inhabit the north, while the Rhoynish are primarily found in Dorne, with the Undulls populating the remaining regions. Hence, the title of the King of Westeros begins, King of the Undulls, the Rhoynish, and the First Men, ruler of the 7 kingdoms, protector of the realm. From the evident improvement in discipline among the clansmen, Green perceived that the soldiers had not relaxed their training despite the absence of their lord. The newly arrived clansmen gathered at the command post in the Queen's District, and after a brief but impressive display of drill, Green felt a swell of satisfaction. He held a fondness for the straightforward nature of the Crabclaw Peninsula's soldiers, who stood ready at the slightest command to engage in combat. With their simple demeanor coupled with the ever-strengthening discipline of the troops, Green was confident that Kleb's legion would one day become the mightiest army in Westeros. Amidst the crowd, Green noticed a young man at the back, whose appearance starkly contrasted with that of the Kleb clansman. The youth was clad in tattered leather armor, bearing a bow upon his back. He seemed to be of a similar age to Green, with a tall and slender frame, a head of medium length, slightly curly red hair, and a face speckled with freckles, exuding an air of timidity. Raising an eyebrow, Green beckoned the young man forward. The red-haired youth, visibly anxious, nodded nervously before glancing at Monton, who stood nearby, and then hurried over. "Greetings, esteemed noble lord. My name is Ange." Upon hearing the name, Green's eyes flickered with interest. "How did you come to be here?" Ange replied respectfully, "I was part of a mercenary band, which has since disbanded. Recently, I have been observing the docks for any suitable mercenary groups to join. This morning, I met your guard, Lord Monton, at the Blackwater docks, and he brought me here." It turned out that while waiting at the docks, Monton had instinctively recognized Ange amid the crowd. An unassuming appearance belied a formidable strength. Monton's intuition told him that this individual possessed extraordinary abilities that would surely appeal to Green. Chapter 34. The terrified Lancel Red Keep, Maegor's Holdfast. After listening to Lancel's trembling recount, Cersei, standing by the window, cast a disdainful glance at him, her beautiful eyes flashing with contempt. "Poor Lancel, have you been frightened?" Lancel's voice still quivered as he replied, I apologize, cousin Cersei. It was I who sought out Baron Green. After all, I was the one who initially proposed the execution of those rumor-mongers at the council meeting. But I have seen executions before, just never so many at once. Hundreds of people. Baron Green merely waved his hand, and truly, heads rolled, staining the ground red. I do not even know how I returned to the Red Keep. Cersei listened silently, her cheeks flushed deeper, her chest rising and falling uncontrollably. Struggling to contain the warmth within, she pressed her voice down. I truly did not misjudge you. Green's decisive executions brought Cersei an unusual delight, transcending the pleasures of the flesh. She shifted her delicate form concealed within her gown, asking, Where is Robert now? I hear he has gone hunting again. And where is Jaime? At this hour, Jaime should be instructing Prince Joffrey in swordsmanship. You may go. Substitute for Jaime and keep Joffrey company. Tell Jaime to come find me immediately. Yes, of course. After speaking, Lancel seemed to sense Cersei's unusual demeanor, gazing at her with concern, hesitating to speak. Noticing Lancel still standing there, Cersei took a deep breath to compose herself and exclaimed, Why are you not leaving yet? Startled by her tone, Lancel trembled and hurriedly bowed before departing. Once Lancel was gone, Cersei moved awkwardly to a chair, her actions slightly unnatural. She removed the ribbon binding her hair, allowing her golden locks to cascade down her shoulders and collarbone. As her fingertips played with the tips of her hair, Cersei lowered her eyelids, her long lashes veiling the glimmering light in her eyes. A smile graced her lips as she savored the unfamiliar yet fleeting pleasure she had never experienced before. In the garden of the Red Keep, Lancel Lannister felt that today was the unluckiest day of his life. He had initially been eager to witness Green's execution of criminals, only to be so frightened that his legs turned to jelly, and he barely managed to return to the Red Keep. Enduring his discomfort, he dutifully reported to Princess Cersei, only to be dismissed without reason in the end. Chapter 35. Beauty as a form of power. Members of House Lannister are well aware that Duke Tywin Lannister's favorite is Jaime Lannister. Jaime's exceptional qualities further elevate his status within the Lannister family. Tywin has always been indifferent towards Tyrion, disregarding him completely. Regardless of Tywin's attitude, it is difficult for anyone to warm to Tyrion, especially given his dwarfism, which invites disdain. Despite the myriad of circumstances, the affection and protection bestowed by Jaime ensured that the Lannisters retained at least a fade of respect towards Tyrion. Among them was Lancel Lannister. However, today, Lancel witnessed Tyrion striking Prince Joffrey in defense of himself. This act transformed Lancel's regard for his cousin Tyrion from mere politeness to profound admiration. Lancel's eyes sparkled with gratitude and reverence as he gazed upon Tyrion. His innate intensity was palpable, and Tyrion, having faced a predicament akin to that of Greyjoy, could not help but shiver under Lancel's brilliant gaze. Avoiding Lancel's eyes, Tyrion patted his thigh and said, Come, let us depart and seek out the young lord. They began preparations for smoked roast beef early today, which pairs splendidly with summer red wine. Lancel was haunted by images of decapitated heads, an unsettling chill gripping his heart. Could he still consume meat? He swallowed down his rising nausea, reflecting on the remarkable fortitude of Greyjoy and his companions. Cautiously glancing in the direction of Prince Joffrey's departure, and seeing it still devoid of onlookers, he sighed in relief and followed Tyrion. Cousin Tyrion, should we inform Jaime? Tyrion shrugged. Jaime and Cersei are engaged in discussions. I have no desire to intrude at this moment. My sister would relish any pretext to devour me whole. He continued reassuringly, You ought to calm your mind. I assure you, all will be well. We must focus on the banquet this evening. Lancel conceded, recognizing the validity of Tyrion's words and his own current state of panic. As they walked, Tyrion remarked, Lancel, do not fixate solely on the horrors witnessed at the gallows. Consider instead why Greyjoy acted as he did. Perhaps you can glean something valuable from his actions. Learn the Baron Greyjoy's cruelty? Lancel suddenly realized that the battlefield might not be as glorious as he had envisioned. The stark contrast between the numbers in books and his first-hand experience was jarring. It was far more gruesome. The battlefield would surely be drenched in blood. Perhaps his father foresaw his unsuitability for combat, which was why he distanced him from the army. Tyrion, displaying remarkable patience, said, You remain fixated on the bloodshed. Yet I must impart that all of this fundamentally pertains to the art of governance. Chapter 36. The Rhetoric of Peter the Red Keep. The hand of the king's study on the second floor. Jon Arryn held numerous titles: Duke of the Eyrie, Defender of the Vale, Guardian of the East, and Hand of King Robert Baratheon I. In his youth, Jon Arryn boasted golden hair and blue eyes, complemented by a hawkish nose, presenting a striking visage. Now, At the age of 52 in the year 297, Jon Arryn had long lost the youthful charm. His once lustrous and abundant golden locks had turned gray and thin. His face was lined with wrinkles, his teeth considerably diminished, and his stooped posture, exacerbated by the ravages of illness, rendered him notably decrepit. Jon Arryn's murky eyes occasionally sparkled with a glimmer of brilliance, signifying his firm grip on the power of the Red Keep. The master of coin, Petyr Baelish, seemingly nonchalant, picked up a letter that had already been unsealed. "My lord, it appears this is correspondence from the Arryn family, hailing from Gulltown." Petyr Baelish, a man of humble origins from the Vale, had earned the trust and favor of Lord Jon Arryn. Initially, it was the Duchess Lisa Tully, who harbored a secret affection for Baelish, that persuaded her husband, Jon Arryn, to appoint him as the tax collector for Gulltown. With an innate talent for finance and trade, Petyr saw Gulltown's tax revenue multiply tenfold under his stewardship, prompting Jon Arryn to elevate him time and again, until he ultimately became the master of coin for King Robert Baratheon. Jon Arryn lifted his gaze from the pile of documents. "Ah, is that the letter? I have yet to peruse its contents. It is said that many have perished in Gulltown." Petyr spoke ambiguously, deliberately emphasizing the fatalities. The mention of death piqued Jon Arryn's interest, prompting him to set aside the documents in his hands. Petyr respectfully handed the letter to Lord Jon Arryn, who squinted as he read its contents. "Nobleman from the Crabclaw Peninsula, you say?" After a moment of contemplation, Jon placed the letter on the table. "Youthful folly. It is highly likely that the puppet master is Baron Crabclaw. Over 20 lives lost in a single night. This half-wild noble seems to regard human life with utter disregard. However, esteemed lord, as the letter states, we lack direct evidence. Relying solely on a song from the Crabclaw Peninsula would not suffice to secure a conviction with the Justice Minister. Lord Lannister." Jon Arryn's aged visage darkened with a hint of anger. Any discerning individual can see that he is emulating the old lion of Lannister. "You must immediately arrange for a raven to be dispatched to the Crabclaw Peninsula, instructing him not to delay, but to come to the Red Keep forthwith. If he possesses any semblance of noble honor." Chapter 37. The beasts beside him. Lisa's incessant chatter had become a source of annoyance. Tyrion could no longer bear it, and summoned Lisa's attendants to carry her away, restoring a semblance of peace and tranquility to the world. He tossed several logs into the campfire. "Queen Cersei may assign you the responsibility of overseeing the royal hunt in 2 days' time." Gryn reclined in his chair, exuding an air of relaxation. He took a sip of summer red and shifted his gaze towards Tyrion. "My sister's emotions run deep, whether love or hate, when she adores you. She wishes to bestow everything upon you." Tyrion's playful demeanor faded, and he spoke with gravity. "When it comes to hatred, it is a wish for your demise. The more brutal, the more joyful." Tyrion reached for the wine jug, pouring as he continued. "You shall find yourself quite occupied, dear sister, among all in King's Landing. She holds you in the highest regard." Tyrion could barely maintain his seriousness for 3 seconds before his tone shifted back to jest. Green slightly curved the corners of his lips. "My Lord Tyrion, I shall strive to avoid mistakes and extend Her Majesty's favor for as long as possible. I sincerely appreciate your counsel." Tyrion grinned broadly. "Indeed, prolong it as much as you can. Endure a little longer, like a man. I almost made a jest about my sister Cersei's affections." He raised his cup towards the Red Keep. "Forgive me, my dearest sister." Green could not help but chuckle. Monton and Ongai, one stout and the other tall, sat by another fire in the backyard. Ongai delightfully sipped his ale, casting glances toward Green's direction. Monton chewed on a fist-sized chunk of roasted beef for a while before swallowing. "Ongai, don't just drink. The smoked meat today is exquisite." Ongai tore a piece of meat from the platter and popped it into his mouth. "True, but I still prefer the ale." Monton replied with a Na'vi grin. "The ale here is rather mediocre. The Marigold ale is far superior." Ongai inquired, "Is it famous? How come I haven't heard of it?" Monton nodded his large head. "It's the ale from our territory. It had several names in the past, but I heard that Steward Herschel improved the brewing process and established a new name. Unfortunately, you can't taste it just yet." Ongai periodically scanned his surroundings. Stretching his limbs, he shifted his gaze. Despite the darkness, his eyes still sparkled. Once finished, Ongai spoke. "Thank the Seven, and thank you, Lord Green. Though I have yet to visit, I finally feel at home. I adore Whispering City." He took a hearty swig of ale and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Upon my return, I shall seek anew." Chapter 38. The night of King's Landing. Chaos is a ladder, and Petyr Baelish revels in creating turmoil to reap its rewards. With each upheaval he incites, Petyr fortifies his own power. What is his true intention, or is it merely caprice? Normally, the call from Duke John, a staunch adversary of the Targaryen loyalists, would instill panic in Glyn, a descendant of the Dragon House's loyalists, compelling him to seek refuge with Queen Cersei. The Queen has always disdained Duke Jon's consolidation of power. Given her temperament, she might even seize this situation as an opportunity to strike. From Cersei's perspective, you dare to threaten my people? At last, I have something to hold against you. A chance delivered to my doorstep. I must not let it slip away. With her limited political acumen, even if she were to discern that this was Peter's doing, she might secretly thank him. While Cersei could escalate matters, she would gain nothing from Duke Jon. She is no match for him and will never reflect on her own faults, instead casting blame upon those around her, particularly Glyn. As Tyrion insightfully noted in his analysis of Cersei's character, she adores you when she favors you, yet her disdain will be even fiercer when she turns against you. The likelihood of Glyn's favor being entirely extinguished is quite considerable. While his life may not be in peril, it is highly probable that he will be expelled from King's Landing, becoming the subject of ridicule. At this juncture, Cersei is not a reliable ally. This predicament stems from Glyn's low political standing. In Peter's view, even if exposed later, a rural baron with no means of self-preservation would hardly dare to retaliate. Nor would he possess the strength to do so. Peter perhaps believes that he is more likely to remain in the shadows, ensuring his safety regardless of the direction events unfold. Were Peter to understand Glyn better, his actions would be more circumspect, and his strategies would be more astute. He would refrain from hastily employing tactics or directly involving himself. Peter regards Glyn as a trivial pawn, expendable and devoid of threat, a gross underestimation. Glyn halted his thoughts. My sincere friend, Lord Tyrion, I require your assistance. Tyrion's expression turned serious. What do you wish to do? Glyn first expressed his gratitude. I lack my own intelligence network in King's Landing, and I need Lannister information. I wish to meet with Peter Baelish this evening. Without a moment's hesitation, Tyrion nodded in agreement to Glyn's request and inquired, will there be bloodshed? If this escalates, it will be more detrimental to you. My suggestion is. Tyrion paused, then continued. Chapter 39. This is the last time previously, while awaiting outside the walls, Glyn had analyzed Peter's political maneuvering. Duke Jon Arryn of the Eyrie, being the protector of the Vale, wields influence in the Riverlands through his marriage connections with House Tully, while the Stark of Winterfell is his foster son. Jon Arryn alone can directly or indirectly control the Vale, the Riverlands, and the North. In the original narrative, Peter was instrumental in orchestrating the marriage alliance between King Joffrey and Margaery Tyrell, successfully forging an alliance between the Lannisters and the Tyrells. In return, Peter was bestowed the title of Duke of Harrenhal and appointed as the governor of the Riverlands. The second step involved Peter discreetly informing Tywin Lannister of the Tyrells' plan to secretly take Sansa Stark to Highgarden to wed Willis Tyrell, thereby allowing Tywin ample time to marry Sansa to Tyrion first. Consequently, he secured Tywin Lannister's support and, without a single blow, wed Lisa Tully as the Duke of Harrenhal, thus bringing the Vale under his control. The third step was to venture into the north to aid Sansa Stark in seizing power there. Peter's ambitions encompassed the control of the Vale, the Riverlands, and the North. Peter's rise to power overlaps with Duke Jon's, raising the question, is Peter merely an imitator or a devotee of Duke Jon? Glyn spoke in a calm voice that sent shivers down the spine. My Lord Peter, do you enjoy gambling? I myself am not particularly fond of it. Peter shook his head, a smile tinged with a hint of unease gracing his lips. Glyn remarked, I wager that if a fatality were to occur in this room tonight, I would remain unscathed and return to Whispering City to continue relishing the glory of nobility. Peter suddenly comprehended why others referred to the Kleber family as half-savaged aristocrats. Their barbarity was such that they disregarded the rules of the power game entirely. Contemplating this, Peter felt not panic, but dread. I might meet my demise tonight. How could he have discerned my stratagems? His age should not afford him such insight. Yes, it must be Tyrion, that Lannister dwarf. Peter recalled that the servant dispatched to inform Glyn had indeed mentioned seeing Tyrion in the company of Glyn. Moreover, the intelligence regarding my lodging tonight incited a quiet loathing for the loquacious Tyrion, a fellow who also eschewed the rules of the game. Peter's gray-green eyes flickered. Lord Glyn, I believe we have been misled by the slanders of a petty individual. In truth, I have always harbored goodwill towards you. Our alliance would be a formidable one. Chapter 40. Prime Minister Tyrion rubbed his small hands together, invigorating himself as he addressed Jaime. The situation is as follows. Tyrion, known for his eloquence, succinctly conveyed the events to Jaime. Upon hearing this, Jaime recalled Glyn's earlier analysis concerning the conspiracy directed at Cersei, and a thought struck him. Tyrion, you are more astute than I. Can you fathom why Littlefinger seeks to incite conflict between Cersei and Jon? Jaime's inquiry was remarkably natural. He had absorbed Green's counsel and, being a man of his word, refrained from disclosing the conspiracy regarding Cersei to others. Regarding Cersei's machinations, Jaime would keep his investigations clandestine. Tyrion slapped his thigh, invigorated. Initially, I too failed to understand why Petyr would act thus, but Green illuminated the matter for me. This young man is indeed astute. Were it not for my stature, I might have been tempted to bestow upon him an impassioned kiss. Jaime observed his brother's brief seriousness with a bemused smile. I suggest you abandon that notion. From what I know of him, such behavior would undoubtedly jeopardize your friendship. Tyrion laughed heartily. Jaime patted Tyrion on the back. What did young Green say? Tyrion cleared his throat and composed himself. Littlefinger's target seems to be none other than the esteemed Duke Jon, who is acutely aware of the old Duke's frail health. Jaime's eyes widened in confusion. Tyrion continued, You are well aware of our sister's disposition. She has long harbored disdain for Duke Jon. And with King Robert absent from the Red Keep, who could thwart her if she chose to create a scene? Cersei is somewhat willful, a fact that Jaime could not dispute. She would not show the slightest mercy due to the old Duke's age, likely exacerbating Duke Jon's health issues under Cersei's provocations. Upon hearing this, Jaime had almost deduced Petyr's intentions. Was Petyr coveting Jon's power? Tyrion nodded in affirmation. Duke Jon places his utmost trust in Petyr, who hails from the same vale, and due to Jon's declining health, he can no longer manage affairs as he once did. This incapacity only heightens his reliance on that seemingly loyal and steadfast Lord of the Vale. A flicker of indifference passed through Jaime's eyes, a ludicrous scheme, one that had already caused harm to Cersei. Tyrion spoke gravely. Indeed, the Lannisters must repay their debts, and thus, I did not hesitate to offer Petyr's position to Green. With Petyr's cunning, he will undoubtedly surmise my involvement. Jaime patted Tyrion's small shoulder. Well done, Tyrion. Leaning closer to Jaime, Tyrion remarked, Green will meet with Duke Jon this morning. We must find a way to keep this from Cersei, lest she learns of their encounter. In the Red Keep, at Maegor's Holdfast, the Queen's chambers, Jaime stood by the bedside, gazing at Cersei, who was still enveloped in slumber, and unconsciously curved his lips into a smile. The soft silk covers beautifully accentuated the lovely contours of the dreamer. Jaime's throat moved as he gently touched the exposed instep of Cersei's foot. Your Grace, good morning. Cersei's lashes fluttered, her long, supple legs straightened, and her dainty toes stretched and curled. After a brief moment of confusion, a smile danced in the corners of her eyes. Good morning, Sir Jaime. Let your queen rise. Cersei accepted the robe Jaime offered, wrapping it around her form as she settled before the vanity. Sir Jaime, I feel you are somewhat different today. Am I mistaken? The composed Jaime felt a flicker of unease within, yet maintained his facade. Perhaps it is your cheerful mood? Cersei shot him a sidelong glance. Speak, what is it? Jaime moved behind her, placing his broad hands upon her shoulders. Princess Myrcella has long wished for you to teach her the art of braiding hair. I believe today is the perfect opportunity. Cersei lifted her head slightly, meeting Jaime's gaze, a smile gracing her features. Very well, I shall oblige, Sir Jaime. For your sake, we shall go shortly. In the Red Keep, the Hands Tower. With a rhythmic cadence, Green strode forward, yet his mind was preoccupied with the recent conversation with Varys. Varys was a quick-witted player of power, with his little birds everywhere. In Green's memories from before, Varys had once claimed that his loyalty lay not with kings or queens, but with the people. It had been said that Varys was the most villainous good man. The contradictions in Varys's actions rendered it impossible for Green to categorize him. 1 foot already in the game of power, Green had formed his own political stance. Although Varys's words were exceedingly cordial, Green, who himself spoke with various motives to different people, instinctively remained wary of the power player's rhetoric. Firstly, it is evident that Varys had previously engaged in favorable dealings on behalf of Green before Duke Jon, demonstrating kindness towards him. In the realm of Game of Thrones, affection does not arise without reason. What could be Varys's ulterior motive? Green, being a descendant of the loyal subjects of House Targaryen, could he be recruiting mercenaries in anticipation of the Targaryens' return to the Iron Throne? Green outright dismissed this possibility, realizing that Daenerys could not secure funding without her dragons. He had initially believed he could develop his position discreetly before the plot unfolded, yet upon entering King's Landing, he felt increasingly vulnerable. Every slight action by the powerful seemed to have repercussions for him. As Chapter 42 unfolds, Duke Jon's murky gaze transformed, becoming exceptionally sharp. Faced with the intimidating stare of Duke Jon, the confusion on Green's face deepened. Within Duke Jon's eyes, Green appeared innocent and curious. Could it be that I have misjudged? In an instant, Duke Jon dismissed this ludicrous notion. Nobles from the Crab Peninsula are inherently warlike. To be combative equates to being bloodthirsty. According to the intelligence provided by Varys, the young man before him not only reclaimed his family's former lands, but has also been engaged in campaigns against the mountain tribes in the eastern Crab Peninsula. How could these half-wild nobles, who do not shed blood, easily spare the merchants of Seagull Town who dared to insult their name? Duke Jon's demeanor softened considerably. Everyone was aware that the events concerning House Mika were orchestrated by him. Green had surmised Duke Jon's intent. He sought for Green to openly admit to being the perpetrator. What was his purpose? Green speculated that Duke Jon aimed to expel him from King's Landing. Why would he wish to banish Green? The name Lannister crossed Green's mind. What had previously eluded Green's understanding was now crystal clear. Disinterested in responding to Jon's interrogation, Green retorted, "My lord, I have long been curious. 15 years after the war had concluded, why do you continue to instigate animosity between the Vale and the Peninsula?" As Green's words lingered in the air, the atmosphere in the study turned heavy. Duke Jon's gaze sharpened further, fixating on Green in silence. Green continued, "Fortunately, the Crab Peninsula lacks ships and is separated from the Vale by a strait. The petty half-wild Barren was encroaching upon his authority, provoking rare anger from Duke Jon. Simultaneously, a sense of bewilderment arose within him. This young man was no mere simpleton. What emboldened him? Duke Jon sighed inwardly, acknowledging his waning strength. He truly was aging. He had not forgotten the purpose of this special audience with Green. "Young man, are you attempting to evade your guilt through alternative inquiries? Such behavior is that of a coward." Green raised an eyebrow. Both Eddard Stark and Robert Baratheon were foster sons of Duke Jon, personally nurtured by him. Observing Duke Jon in this moment, Green discerned the primary reason for their political ineptitude. No wonder Petyr bestowed upon him the green cap, yet remained unsatisfied, daring to covet his power. The myriad illustrious titles of Duke Jon merely forged a facade of strength. In face-to-face encounters, the astute Green could discern that the pie-maker would hardly welcome another pie-maker. Green was reluctant to engage. Duke Jon's determination to expel Green from King's Landing was unwavering. It was now mid-September of the year 297 in the history of Westeros. According to the narrative, there remained approximately 6 months until Duke Jon's exit. Could Green, through judicious delay, prolong the inevitable until that time? It could be asserted that Green's well-laid plans were thwarted by Littlefinger Petyr. 2 significant reasons compelled Green to retain Petyr. The first was the necessity of joining forces with Lady Lysa Arryn to dispose of Duke Jon. The second was that Petyr's subtle machinations forced Green to confront Duke Jon prematurely. Green's restraint and murderous intent was a calculated move to allow Petyr to resolve the troubles he had instigated, thus minimizing the cost. This was precisely the motivation for Green's visit to Petyr that night. With Petyr's acumen, he would know how to proceed in a manner most advantageous to himself. Would Petyr subsequently scheme in secret to retaliate against Green? Green would not assume the role of a passive player, waiting for an action before responding in kind. Such an exchange was not in Green's nature, whether by intent or by accident. Once Petyr stumbled upon Green's ironclad resolve, he had already secured a place on Green's list for elimination. After Duke Jon's departure, barring any significant upheaval, Green would not naively allow Petyr to linger through the festivities. The preconditions arose because Green had already set one foot within the game of power, where no enemies are eternal, and players must remain adaptable. Being appointed as the protector of the peninsula was undoubtedly advantageous. However, Green and Duke Jon's standings were not equivalent, and transactions between unequal parties could never be fair. Green had no desire to even hear the terms of Duke Jon's negotiations. Shaking his head, he replied sincerely, expressing gratitude for the Duke's regard, yet asserted, to attain such a position, one must first bear its weight, and his capabilities did not merit the title of protector. Suddenly, Duke Jon recalled a slippery fish from his youth, recounted by Robert Baratheon, elusive and difficult to catch. What was its name? Recollecting his thoughts, Duke Jon spoke. "Perhaps upon fulfilling my task, you may indeed be worthy of the title of protector." The sense of powerlessness stemming from Duke Jon's insistence troubled Green. He suppressed the surge of lethal intent that briefly arose within him. Green found that, compared to the ostensibly amiable Duke Jon, the outwardly formidable Queen Cersei was, in fact, rather endearing. At that moment, Green particularly longed for the presence of his boss, Cersei. Deliberately, he displayed a conflicted expression. Red Keep, Megatha Esgarden. Queen Cersei, adorned in opulent attire, sat gracefully, her eyes sparkling with warmth as she watched Princess Myrcella frolic with Prince Tommen. Beside her, Prince Joffrey wore an expression of mild impatience. Not far off, Ser Jaime stood, sword in hand, clad in silver and white armor. Together with him, Lancel remained, nervously evading Joffrey's occasionally piercing gaze. The figures of Bronn and Tyrion emerged in the garden, drawing near to Jaime and Lancel. Bronn positioned himself beside Jaime, while Tyrion, with a mischievous grin, pulled the flustered Lancel to the other side. Jaime cast a glance towards Cersei in the distance, instinctively lowering his voice. "My lord, what did the Duke say?" Unbeknownst to him, the moniker he used for Bronn had shifted from wildling to young lord. Bronn replied. He proposed conditions regarding the governance of the Crab Isle. Without reservation, Bronn recounted the events to Jaime, particularly emphasizing the discovery of the hidden compartment in the Prime Minister's study. Jaime responded with a hint of sarcasm. The hand of the king's study is rife with drafts, and yet the Duke remains oblivious. Bronn nodded in agreement. After their discussion, an awkward silence lingered. Despite their growing familiarity, it seemed their temperaments did not quite align, leaving them with little common ground beyond matters of state. To alleviate the tension, Bronn glanced towards the children at play. "Aren't they delightful?" He attempted to initiate conversation. "Princess Myrcella is quite charming." Jaime, however, did not engage with Bronn's attempt, merely casting a cold sidelong glance in his direction. At that moment, the perceptive Bronn sensed an undercurrent. Unbeknownst to them, Tyrion, who had taken his place beside Jaime, observed the entire exchange with a knowing smile. Before Bronn could ponder further, a handmaiden of Queen Cersei approached. "Good day, Baron Bronn. The Queen requests your presence." Bronn exchanged a glance with Jaime and followed the handmaiden's lead. Queen Cersei offered a slight nod in greeting to Bronn, saying, "Baron Bronn, this is my eldest son, Joffrey Baratheon, heir to the Iron Throne." Joffrey, with his chin raised and a smirk reminiscent of his mother, bore an undeniable resemblance to Cersei. No wonder Cersei favors Joffrey, Bronn thought. He placed a hand on his chest and bowed. "Good day, Your Highness." Joffrey appeared pleased with Bronn's address. Meanwhile, the weeping younger brother was referred to as Prince Tommen, while he himself was acknowledged as Joffrey. Chapter 45. Bronn takes the initiative. Bronn vowed that his initial actions were purely professional, aligning himself with his employer, Cersei. Yet, he could not help but feel a stirring within him. He had underestimated the allure of Queen Cersei, who possessed one of the finest visages in the Seven Kingdoms. Despite the passage of time leaving its mark upon her from bearing 3 children, her golden curls and emerald eyes still complemented her slender figure and fair complexion. Green, relying on his formidable willpower, suppressed the restlessness within him and continued with his work. His gaze wandered, evading the penetrating stare of Queen Cersei. Inside, his thoughts raced while externally, he swallowed hard, his throat constricting. "Your Grace, do you have a preferred candidate to replace the king's hand?" Green's response took Cersei by surprise. Or perhaps delight would be the more fitting term. "He truly understands me." Cersei's favored choice for the hand of the king was undoubtedly her father, Tywin Lannister. Yet she was acutely aware that King Robert would never consent to such a thing. With a satisfied smile, Cersei withdrew her delicate hand. "You always manage to pleasantly surprise me. However, you must realize that as long as Robert remains, Jon's position is unassailable." Cersei noticed that as she spoke, Green subtly distanced himself from her. Observing Green's feigned calmness, she couldn't help but smirk. Green then stated, "Today, I observe that Duke Jon's health is quite poor. Even for the sake of his well-being, as queen, you have every justification to nominate a new prime minister. This way, we could establish a rival for Duke Jon. Even if we cannot unseat him from the king's hand, at the very least, we could tarnish his reputation and introduce a formidable political adversary." At this juncture, Green lowered his voice slightly. "The enemy of your enemy may indeed become your ally. You could simply watch the unfolding drama, and at that moment, you would hold the reins." After a brief pause, he continued, "Your position would be transcendent. Whoever gains your support among them will possess the advantage." Cersei's eyes sparkled, as if she could already envision Jon, the old fool, begging for her favor to preserve his power. Her breathing grew heavy. "What do you propose?" Green regained his usual composed tone. "After the royal hunt, allow me to visit Lord Mace Tyrell of Highgarden on your behalf." A blowfish? Truly a heavyweight. Though Cersei's tone was dismissive, Green discerned the hidden apprehension beneath her facade. Blowfish was a derisive nickname for the Tyrell patriarch, Lord Mace Tyrell. Chapter 46. The flat-bottomed sailboat King's Landing, Hook Street, afternoon. Green, accompanied by Monton and Angeli, had just entered the courtyard when they encountered a sturdy young man in a blue robe, who, despite his ordinary height, was impressively built. Upon spotting Green, the young man approached with excitement, dropping to one knee. "My Lord Green, the loyal Mathelbeck, sends his regards." Indicating for Mathelbeck to rise, A smile graced Green's face. Mattel, have you finally been allowed to leave? The 22-year-old Mathelbeck scratched the back of his head, somewhat bashful. I have finally become a father. My own father is still in the old country, with no known return date. I could no longer wait. So I requested Steward Herschel to send me on a merchant ship. Following the address provided by Steward Herschel, I have just arrived. Mattelbeck is the legitimate eldest son of Knight Masonbeck, a vassal of Kleber. The Masonbeck family adheres to an unbreakable rule. The firstborn must not engage in warfare or embark on distant journeys until he has sired a son. It is said that this decree was specifically established by Kleber's ancestors for the family of the vassal knight, a rule echoed by the family of Purple, another knight in Kleber's service. Under Masonbeck's guidance, Mattel was wed at the tender age of 15. He toiled for 7 long years to fulfill his family's obligations and, above all, to seek his own freedom. Green empathized with Mattel's eagerness to venture forth immediately after the birth of his son, commending the foresight of Kleber's forebears. He clapped Mattel on the sturdy shoulder and proclaimed, "Welcome, Mattel. From this moment forth, you shall be my retainer, entrusted with the care of my steed and the safekeeping of my bow and arrows." Suppressing his excitement, Mattel knelt once more, pledging, "I vow, in accordance with the ancestral traditions of the Beck family, to remain eternally loyal to you, until death do us part. I swear it by the names of the old and new gods." In accordance with Kleber's custom, Green, with his sword held firmly in both hands, spoke in a steady voice imbued with solemnity, "By my hearth, there shall always be a place for you, upon my table. There shall forever be meat and wine for you. I swear it by the names of the old and new gods." Ongai, feeling envious, leaned towards Montan and whispered, "Have you sworn fealty to Lord Green?" Montan blinked his large, unilluminated eyes and replied, "No. Have you not seen the Lord's military regulations? Unless under special circumstances, one must serve the Lord for 3 years before being eligible to swear allegiance based on prior merits. I am in no hurry." Ongai sheepishly scratched his head. "I am not very literate. Can you read?" Montan, with a hint of pride, replied, "My mother taught me. I wouldn't get fed if I didn't learn." Ongai's expression darkened momentarily but quickly returned to normal. "What constitutes a special circumstance?" Montan answered innocently, "Like him? The family of Mattel has been loyal to the Lord's lineage since their ancestors." Chapter 47. Attributes often overlooked. Mattel spoke. "Jeffreys has been persistently requesting to meet with you." Green halted his steps, his brown eyes flickering with curiosity. "Do you know his purpose?" Mattel first shook his head, then nodded. "My lord, I suspect it is concerning his son. Jeffreys, having fathered a child late in life, has only a 5-year-old son, a merchant's child who would be left unprotected upon his demise. The future for such a child is all too predictable. This is merely my conjecture." Green remained silent. Recently, Jeffreys had been increasingly engaged in leather trade with Whispering City. Yet it was always Steward Herschel who represented him. Green had exchanged only a few words with Jeffreys during their last encounter aboard the ship. Thus they could hardly be considered familiar. And without familiarity, trust cannot flourish. If Mattel's speculation is accurate, would a dying father entrust his child to an unfamiliar individual? Suddenly, Green shook his head in self-mockery. Recently, dealing with numerous treacherous individuals had rendered him susceptible to paranoia. Matters must be assessed with discernment, without further intelligence. One ought not to indulge in conspiracy theories, for excessive suspicion is a manifestation of anxiety. Green inquired, "Where is he?" Martell scratched his head with his index finger. Lowering his gaze, "His carriage is nearby." Jeffreys has consistently emphasized the friendship established with Whisper Fortress and his admiration for the adults. I cannot shake him off. He is gravely injured, and it feels unseemly to abandon him. As he spoke, Martell furtively glanced at Green's expression. Every advantage carries a disadvantage, and due to the family's regulations, Martell had been overly constrained in his upbringing to fulfill the role of an heir. Martell appeared mature on the surface, yet lacked the depth of experience. Merchants, engaged daily with a multitude of people, develop a keen insight through their rich experiences. Jeffreys had long seen through Martell's facade, or he would not dare cling to him. However, Martell was a descendant of the knights of the Klebb family, and Green could only guide him gradually. With a stern countenance, Green commanded, "Bring him in." Martell, feeling that he had mishandled the situation, dejectedly went to summon the individual. The afternoon sun was somewhat blinding, prompting Green to instruct Montan to fetch a chair, whereupon he seated himself in a shaded area. The recent discovery of the eavesdropping layer in the Prime Minister's study suggested that Duke Jon had not been affected, yet within, he surely could not have maintained such tranquility, for no one could confront this matter with composure. The subsequent ramifications of the incident in the Prime Minister's study had become unpredictable. Green's thoughts drifted to Chapter 48, the Council Chamber. Tears streamed down Joffrey's face as he sobbed. "Thank you. I am eternally grateful for your kindness." 5-year-old Daenerys, witnessing his father's tears, pouted and was on the verge of crying, but a thin, dark-haired middle-aged man beside him quickly hushed him. This man was concerned that Daenerys might leave Baron Green with an impression of weakness. Green cast a sidelong glance at Martell, saying, "Martell, be astute. Come and tend to your brother." Green's voice finally roused Martell from his brooding. His father had acquired an additional adopted son. Today's events would inevitably come to light, and his poor performance could not remain concealed. Martell worried whether his typically stern father would use this as an excuse to insist on him producing another son. He was genuinely frightened by the confinement, and shadows loomed over his heart. Nevertheless, Martell considered that he was now in the service of Lord Green, and even his father could not exert control over him. A smirk formed on his lips. Green observed Martell's myriad expressions, unsure of how to assess this new retainer. Behind his impassive facade, Green inwardly rolled his eyes in disdain. As Green observed that Joffrey's emotions began to settle, he spoke. "Rest assured, I shall take care of your estate, including the plates, curtains, and every golden dragon you have saved. Once your child reaches the age of 15, a suitable age for maturity, I will return everything to your son, Daenerys." The generosity of Green's offer left Joffrey in a state of profound turmoil, rendering him momentarily speechless. Through his extensive experience in commerce spanning over 2 decades, Joffrey had learned an invaluable lesson. When conversing with someone, what remains unspoken often carries greater significance than the spoken words. At that moment, a clarity washed over Joffrey as thoughts of his trading house flooded his mind. This realization brought him a sense of calm. He had initially only perceived the Baron's generosity, which had alarmed him. With a feeble voice, Joffrey addressed Green, saying, "Roselle." Hearing this, the slender, dark-skinned middle-aged man, who had been holding Darius's small hand, approached the carriage door and bowed respectfully to Joffrey. Summoning his strength, Joffrey continued to Green, "My Lord Baron, Roselle is the most trusted steward of my trading house, overseeing the majority of its affairs." Coughing lightly, he took a deep breath, enduring his physical discomfort, and added, "I have no way to repay your kindness. I humbly ask for your protection over my business." Green's brown eyes shifted to a chubby little boy clinging tightly to the leg of Martell, and he let out a soft sigh. Chapter 49. The Council Chamber 2. After providing additional details regarding the Queen's district, Green concluded the conversation. Once Flory and Leighton departed, Green returned to the Red Keep with his guards and entered the Council Chamber, adjacent to the Prime Minister's tower. The Council Chamber served as the venue where the high-ranking officials of the royal court managed the day-to-day affairs of the kingdom. During the Targaryen dynasty, when there were no court meetings, the ministers would typically conduct their duties in their respective offices within the council chamber. Following the Baratheon dynasty, King Robert, indulging in pleasures, relinquished authority to his brother, Duke Jon, and became increasingly detached from governance, spending his days in drunken revelry. The Master of Whisperers, Stannis Baratheon, Robert's younger brother, expressed his dissatisfaction with the king by managing affairs directly from Dragonstone. The Master of Laws, Renly Baratheon, Robert's youngest brother, showed little interest in kingdom matters, seldom appearing in the Red Keep except on rare occasions for court meetings. The aging Prime Minister, Duke Jon Arryn, had become a shadow of his former self, rarely seen outside the Prime Minister's tower. Consequently, the council chamber, the central seat of power second only to the royal court, frequently saw only a few high-ranking officials: the Master of Coin, Peter Baelish, the Master of Whisperers, Varys, and the Grand Maester, Pycelle. Grand Maester Pycelle, a veteran of the Targaryen dynasty, retained his position following the War of Usurpation under King Robert's rule. The primary duty of Bachelor Pycelle is to serve as the advisor to the king, overseeing the compilation of various texts and the organization of knowledge, while managing the correspondence of the Red Keep. He also holds the esteemed position of the royal physician. Given that King Robert is disinterested in state affairs, Bachelor Pycelle has become the counselor to Duke Jon, the king's hand. Guided by an attendant from the Office of State Affairs, Green swiftly arrived at the office of Chancellor Peter. Peter's office, adorned with gold-framed circular windows akin to those in the Prime Minister's study, features a carpet of fine material, while exquisite tapestries grace the walls. As Green surveyed the room's elegant decor, he seemed to catch the faint scent of golden dragons. Upon seeing Green, Peter set down his quill, reclined in his chair, and greeted him with a broad smile. "Ah, is that not Baron Green? I've been expecting you. Please, take a seat." He instructed the attendant to move a chair to the opposite side of the table. Glyn placed his hand on his chest and bowed. "Good day, Lord Peter." After completing his greeting, Glyn settled into his chair. Peter reciprocated the gesture with a smile and waved to dismiss the attendant from the room. Once the attendant had closed the door, Peter spoke. "I have heard of the events that transpired in the study today. Duke Jon has fallen ill once again." Glyn shrugged slightly. Regardless of who faces such a predicament, it is a source of great concern. With this discussion, the topic of Duke Stannis could be brought to a close. Glyn had already made preliminary progress towards his objective, leaving the rest to Peter's strategy. This matter did not require intricate schemes. The exposure of the incident in the Prime Minister's study presented a timely opportunity. As long as the schemer remained discreet, there was no need for reminders. The astute Peter would naturally conceal his identity, while Glyn positioned himself behind Peter. At this moment, both parties opted to maintain mutual confidentiality, an unspoken political understanding among strategists. The royal hunt, despite its name suggesting a pursuit, is fundamentally a royal event organized by the Queen for the noble ladies of the realm, akin to an extravagant excursion. Such royal activities are synonymous with state affairs. Thus, all expenses for the royal hunt fall under the purview of Chancellor Peter for approval and disbursement. Glyn perused the documents presented by Peter, cross-referencing them with the list from the clerks, and subtly furrowed his brow. A gasp escaped him. 20,000 golden dragons. How lavishly the nobles of the realm indulge. The Queen's clerks had been diligently preparing for the royal hunt for 3 entire months, and all necessary procurements had been completed. No wonder he had suddenly taken charge of the royal hunt. When he encountered the clerks in the Hall of Maegor, they had shown no signs of discontent, instead exhibiting an unusually friendly demeanor. The rewards had already been allocated among the clerks, leaving only the arduous task of coordinating the expedition, which they were more than eager to pass on to someone else, allowing themselves a moment of respite. Glyn felt a twinge of jealousy, envious of his colleagues who could leave the table once satisfied, without the burden of washing the dishes. The noble Queen Cersei would remain blissfully unaware of, and indifferent to, such matters. This is a testament to Cersei's trust, compelling Glyn to devote himself to royal affairs. Glyn's character does not dwell excessively on what has already been missed. Peter spoke up, expressing his surprise at Glyn's assumption of the royal hunt at this time, noting that the procurement of essential supplies had long since been completed, leaving only the arduous task of guarding, which offered little opportunity for distinction, thereby prompting the Queen to value him even more. Glyn shrugged, acknowledging the duty at hand. Peter spread his hands wide, his gaze sincere. "Baron Glyn, I have stated before that we are now friends, and within my capacity, I am more than willing to assist my friend." Glyn's remarkable memory recalled that Peter had nearly repeated the last words he had spoken during Glyn's late-night visit. Peter continued, "Although I am the master of coin, to avoid unnecessary complications, I can only assist you with an additional 10,000 golden dragons, my friend." Glyn understood the implication behind Peter's words. The 10,000 golden dragons were a gesture of trust. Chapter 51. The Upright and Loyal Knight in the Red Keep. Within the Maiden's Chamber, Glyn accompanied Jaime to the hall and soon spotted the diminutive figure of Princess Myrcella. Surrounded by maids and nuns, she turned her gaze towards Glyn. A look of childlike delight blossomed on her delicate face, and she seemed poised to move. At that moment, an elderly nun cleared her throat. Upon hearing the sound, Myrcella straightened her posture, immediately suppressing her expression. With a haughty demeanor, she lifted her chin. Myrcella Baratheon was the second child of Queen Cersei, possessing milk-white skin and a cascade of golden curls. This was Glyn's first close encounter with the miniature version of Cersei, resembling Myrcella. At lunch in Maggie's quarters, Myrcella had also been present, but then, Glyn had merely glanced at the freckles on her small face before diverting his attention. Before Glyn could offer his greetings, Myrcella, mimicking Cersei's slight upward tilt of the chin, opened her mouth and spoke with a child's innocence. "Pardon me, Glyn." The nun behind Myrcella cleared her throat once more, prompting Myrcella to abruptly halt her youthful chatter. Her cheeks flushed as she instinctively lowered her head. Perceptive as ever, Glyn discerned a means to extricate himself swiftly. Engaged in the responsibilities of overseeing the royal hunt, Glyn was too occupied to entertain Cersei's child in play. He placed a hand over his heart and bowed. "Your Highness, it is an honor to meet you." Myrcella returned the gesture. "Baron Glyn, I apologize for summoning you so abruptly. I hope I have not disturbed you." Glyn replied with a smile. "To be summoned by your Highness is a privilege." Upon hearing Glyn's response, Myrcella's face lit up with joy. Observing this, the nun hesitated and refrained from speaking. Myrcella's laughter, like ripples in a clear spring, spilled from her lips, illuminating her small visage. Her pure and untainted smile seemed to dispel all shadows from Green's heart. At this moment, Green began to comprehend James a little better, and he felt a newfound patience towards the boss's child. With her sparkling azure eyes, Messila inquired, "I have heard tales of mermaids. They say Mermaid Harbor is your domain. Have you ever encountered a mermaid?" This question nearly stumped the eloquent Green. He crouched down to meet Messila's gaze, a flicker of amusement crossing his brown eyes. "Does Her Highness wish to see a mermaid?" Due to their conversation, Green and Messila were merely a few steps apart. Upon noticing Green lowering himself, Messila found relief, as she no longer had to tilt her small face upward, easing her little neck significantly. Chapter 52. Every place is different at Mermaid Harbor, East Dock. Duke Stannis, under the protection of soldiers, led the man known as the Onion Knight, Davos Seaworth, off the ship. After walking for a while on the dock, Stannis chose not to ride but instead continued on foot into the inner city of Mermaid Harbor. After a silent stroll, Stannis halted, his sharp gaze surveying the surroundings. "Davos, tell me, what do you see?" Davos, as described by Stannis, had an unremarkable appearance, a slender frame, and brown hair that framed his brown-eyed visage, adorned with a thick gray beard. Known as the Onion Knight, Davos served as the commander of Stannis' narrow sea fleet and was deeply trusted by Stannis, also acting as an advisor. Once a smuggler at sea, during the War of Usurper, Davos sailed a small vessel laden with onions and pickled fish, breaching the blockade of the Red Wine fleet to deliver supplies to Stannis, who was enduring a siege at Storm's End. Thanks to these provisions, Storm's End managed to hold out until reinforcements arrived. For this great service, Stannis knighted Davos and granted him fertile lands at the Storm's End. After conferring knighthood upon Davos, Stannis added, "Good deeds cannot atone for evil, nor can evil obscure good. Each action bears its own consequence." As a punishment for Davos's prior smuggling offenses, the stern and impartial Stannis had the first joint of each finger on Davos's left hand, except for the thumb, severed. Davos placed the severed joints into a leather pouch, wearing it around his neck as a charm for his family's protection. Subsequently, he adopted Seaworth as his new family name. In response to Stannis' gaze, the knight surveyed the surroundings and respectfully stated, "Duke Stannis, what I have observed along the way is order." Stannis, with a stern expression, subtly nodded. "Continue," he urged. Davos began. "Initially, I noticed the residents here were quite orderly, but as I followed you, I now sense they adhere to a series of meticulous commands." Stannis nodded slightly more emphatically. "Davos, is there more?" Davos blinked, hesitating for a moment before uncertainly adding, "It seems rather clean here?" A glimmer of insight passed through Duke Stannis' keen gaze. "Davos, this is not a command. The populace dutifully adhering to the stringent laws is the true essence of the realm." When Stannis spoke again, a few individuals, led by the steward Herschel, approached briskly. After catching his breath, Herschel stood before Duke Stannis. Stannis remained silent for a moment before saying, "Send someone to investigate. I wish to know what he has been doing in King's Landing." Davos nodded in obedience. Stannis continued, "Can he serve me?" Davos hesitated briefly before resuming his stride. "Duke Stannis, the young Barren may not yet comprehend your noble qualities." Stannis' sharp gaze darted toward Davos. "Comprehend?" Davos slightly nodded. "Had he recognized your esteemed virtues, Baron Green would undoubtedly have pledged his allegiance to you rather than the Lannister-born queen. The wealth of the Lannisters can easily obscure the vision of a young man. I must assert that you have lost your advantage." Stannis snorted disdainfully. "Gold dragons cannot buy loyalty." Davos concurred. "Duke Stannis, Baron Green's governance and military prowess are remarkable. Such qualities are rare and merit a measure of your patience." In King's Landing, at Hook Street, Green's schemes had unfolded as anticipated. Before long, he successfully took his leave from Princess Messiah, returning to his residence on Hook Street. Green was engrossed in a large map spread out before him. It detailed the route from King's Landing to the Royal Hunt, marking the inns where the hunting party would pause for the night. The Royal Hunt was an event organized for noble women who traveled by carriage, necessitating consideration for their endurance. Thus, the pace of the procession could not match that of a military march. The journey to the Royal Hunt spanned 5 days and 4 nights. Green calculated the distances on the map. The 4 inns were conveniently spaced according to the travel distances for 4 nights. The Royal Hunt had been a royal activity established during the Targaryen dynasty, held biennially. Green surmised that this route had developed a stable market, with the 4 inns being a product of this demand. He stroked his chin, recognizing that established routines and the meticulous attention to detail were managed by seasoned officials. His primary task was to ensure the safety of the Royal Hunt party, indicating that his responsibilities were not as burdensome as he had anticipated. Green's slender fingers traced the map, indicating the royal hunt's location. Upon reaching the destination, the entire party would set up camp until the 7-day hunting event concluded. It seemed he had discerned a way to utilize the gold dragons effectively. As evening approached, having completed his arrangements, Glyn sighed with relief, only to be approached by the slightly flushed Lannister. "Lisa." "Lancel, what is the matter with your face?" Lancel's spirits lifted once more, and a youthful, innocent smile graced his features. "Rest assured, I will remember your wise words. Tyrion once conveyed a similar sentiment to me, stating that growth ultimately embodies a form of happiness." Glyn patted Lancel's shoulder again and returned to his seat. "I have arranged for you to join the guard behind the Queen's carriage. I believe that is where your heart desires to serve." Lancel blinked in surprise. "Am I truly allowed to be a guard? What of your previous remarks?" Glyn shrugged. "At that moment, I spoke to you as a friend, offering comfort. I trust you took my words to heart. Now, I continue as your friend, assisting you in fulfilling your modest wish." Lancel's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Baron Glyn, you are too kind to me. I shall consider this a debt of gratitude. I promise. I will not act recklessly." Hearing Lancel's fervent vow, Glyn smiled warmly. Sunbeams cascaded over King's Landing. Today marked the day the royal hunting party would depart. Queen Cersei would embark from the Red Keep, traversing through the heart of King's Landing and exiting through the Iron Gate. Outside the Iron Gate, Queen Cersei would personally greet the noble ladies from King's Landing and the northern territories participating in the royal hunt. Only after the formalities would the hunting party officially set off southward towards their destination. Noble women from the southern regions would join the Queen's entourage along the way, while some from remote territories would proceed directly to the hunting grounds. Clad in silver armor and draped in a blue cloak, Glyn stood alongside a cadre of Lannister officers in their red and gold attire, awaiting the Queen's arrival beside an opulent carriage. A total of 764 guards under Glyn's command would ensure the safety of the royal hunt, comprising 63 blue-clad men from Cleve, 201 red-clad Lannisters, including the added Lancel, and 500 in gold attire. The noble ladies participating in the hunt would also bring their own family retainers. With a resounding announcement of the Queen's arrival, Cersei emerged into view, holding Princess Myrcella's hand and adorned with the Queen's crown. The crown, encrusted with jewels, sparkled brilliantly in the sunlight. The royal hunt seemed to carry a distinctly masculine air, as no other nobleman would partake, save for the accompanying guards and attendants. Consequently, Cersei had left Joffrey and Tommen behind at the Red Keep. Glyn and his companions advanced in the direction of Queen Cersei. Cersei gently patted Myrcella's small back, though her gaze appeared somewhat distant. The cheers from outside the carriage transported her into a reverie of long-forgotten memories. Years ago, as she emerged hand in hand with the youthful King Robert Baratheon from the Great September of Baelor, the cheers of the crowd resonated just as they do today. Thousands had gathered in King's Landing to celebrate her union with King Robert, the square bustling with an unprecedented fervor. All the women donned their finest garments, while half of the men bore their children upon their shoulders. The tall and imposing Robert whispered sweet reassurances in her ear, proclaiming that all adored her, as Cersei, adorned with the Queen's crown, endeavored to embrace her affection for Robert, prepared to accept her role as queen. On that day, Cersei Lannister triumphantly wed Robert Baratheon, emerging victorious over all the women of Westeros. However, her elation was short-lived. On their wedding night, as Cersei lay beneath the weight of her inebriated husband, she endured Robert's intrusion, only to hear him mutter the name of Lyanna Stark. Lyanna had once been Robert's betrothed, and for the proud Cersei, Robert's actions were utterly unforgivable. The living Lyanna had stolen away her long-adored Rhaegar Targaryen, while the deceased Lyanna seized Robert's heart, leaving Cersei feeling like a vanquished foe, with Lyanna's name a source of her humiliation. How could the lioness Cersei Lannister, who had always harbored ambitions to surpass men, be defeated by a woman? Most infuriatingly, Lyanna was already gone, leaving Cersei bereft of the means to exact her revenge. This bitterness was a bitter pill for Cersei to swallow. The only moment of intimacy Robert Baratheon ever evoked in Cersei was on their wedding night, a moment that should have dissipated into nothingness. Cersei's hand tightened slightly. "Mother?" Princess Myrcella seemed to sense her unease, her eyes darting with curiosity and concern. Cersei collected her thoughts. "I am well, Myrcella. Mind your demeanor, and always remember your princely status." Upon hearing Cersei's words, Myrcella promptly adjusted her posture, her small face proudly lifting her chin. Cersei nodded, a satisfied smile gracing her lips. Outside the iron gates of King's Landing, a vast assembly had gathered, the banners of various houses fluttering in the breeze. Chapter 56, The Disdained Glyn, and, among those who came to pay their respects, only a small number were noble ladies accompanied by nieces or sisters. The majority were lords' wives bringing their daughters. Cersei wore a perfunctory smile as she received wave after wave of noble women. Yet, no amount of indifference on Cersei's part could diminish the fervor of the ladies who came to pay their respects. After the customary greetings, there followed lengthy expressions of reverence towards Queen Cersei, followed by extravagant praises for Princess Myrcella, and ultimately, a proud display of affection for one's own daughter. The conversation then meandered into mundane matters and noble gossip, seemingly oblivious to the increasingly stiff demeanor of Queen Cersei. Glyn speculated whether these noble women were subtly competing with one another, perhaps measuring who could spend the longest time in the Queen's presence. During their audience, Glyn, whose handsome visage initially attracted attention, soon found his moment of glory eclipsed when Jaime entered the tent and took his position directly across from him. Glyn was now utterly convinced that he and Jaime were fundamentally mismatched. The golden-haired, crimson-robed Jaime captivated all ages. And although they were well aware that the Kingsguard could not marry, it did not deter their fervent admiration for him. Witnessing Jaime's popularity, Queen Cersei's smile appeared somewhat more genuine. With his eyelids lowered, Glyn ceased to pay attention to the proceedings within the tent, instead allowing his thoughts to drift towards the Riverlands and the upcoming journey to Highgarden following the royal haunt. In the Westerlands, Casterly Rock stands majestically upon a colossal cliff, serving as the capital of the region and the seat of House Lannister's dominion. True to its name, Casterly Rock is hewn from a massive stone, enhancing the fortress's formidable defenses. Unbreached throughout its storied history, Casterly Rock is acclaimed as the largest, wealthiest, and most secure castle in all of Westeros. Ceavon Lannister, aged 53, boasts golden hair and a neatly trimmed beard, his rounded shoulders and thick waist betraying a slight corpulence. At the age of 16, during the War of the Ninepenny Kings, Ceavon's remarkable valor earned him knighthood from the renowned Red Lion, Lord Roose Bolton. Ceavon spoke with utmost respect, Lord Tywin. Here is the latest intelligence from King's Landing. Having long recognized the exceptional capabilities of his elder brother, Tywin Lannister, Ceavon had served as his most trusted aide for many years, his loyalty and reliability well known. Tywin Lannister believed that some victories were achieved through the pen and ravens. His gaze remained fixed upon the table, his quill unceasing in its motion. Ceavon, have there been any developments? Chapter 57. A beautiful misunderstanding. Glyn sighed inwardly, reflecting on the ignorance and barbarism that characterized the common perception of the Crab Isle. The descendants of the first men were fierce warriors, primarily due to the harsh and chaotic conditions that had long defined their existence. After the Undulls brought their belief in the Seven to Westeros, only the harsh North and Crab Isle remained as territories of the first men. While both regions descended from the first men, the expansive North was considerably better off than the Crab Isle. Approximately a millennium ago, the Stark family of Winterfell vanquished their greatest adversary, the Boltons of the Dreadfort, compelling them to renounce their claim to kingship, thereby largely uniting the North and bringing an end to its tumultuous state. Conversely, the descendants of the ancestors of the Crabclaw Peninsula have never ceased their internecine strife, save when engaged in battles against external foes. Occasionally, a hero would bestow a fleeting semblance of peace upon the tumultuous Crabclaw Peninsula, such as the legendary Clarence Cleb of the Cleb family. Yet, upon the hero's demise, the cycle of bloodshed resumed. During the Usurpers' Wars, the noble class of the Crabclaw Peninsula suffered grievous losses as a result of their defeat. In the aftermath, the nobles of the Vale, led by Duke Jon, imposed a relentless blockade upon the Crabclaw Peninsula for years, exacerbating the violence. The weakened state of the Crabclaw Peninsula inadvertently became an opportunity for Glyn to bring order to the chaos. Generous in spirit, Glyn would not be provoked by the words exchanged among maidens. Once Glyn's western campaign succeeded, and he seized control of the entire Crabclaw Peninsula, the next phase would be to venture westward, beyond its borders. Many nobles from the realm had sought to conquer the Crabclaw Peninsula, including the Mutton family from Springwell Town. The strategic location of Springwell Town led Glyn to suddenly deem it the first target for his westward advance. This decision was rooted in the historic enmity between the Crabclaw Peninsula and the Mutton family, rather than the mischief of the Mutton family's young niece. Outside the inn, in the camp during the night, Montan Wayshuey relished a bowl of meat. Leaning against a tree, Ongai spoke weakly, "I cannot drink. I can hardly muster any spirit." Montan Wayshuey chuckled softly. Ongai looked at Montan and remarked, "You seem unaffected. Don't you also enjoy drinking?" After a brief pause, Ongai added, "It seems everyone has become accustomed to it." Montan swallowed his food before responding, "It is the Lord's decree. During the campaign, all are forbidden from alcohol. Initially, everyone felt as you do, but one becomes accustomed. Ongai settled beside Montan, lowering his voice. Chapter 58, Herschel's Heartache. A crude spear hurtled forth. Knight Pell deftly sidestepped a wild man's thrust, his blade flashing as he severed the enemy's forearm. Pell's movements were fluid. He kicked the foe to the ground and thrust 3 times with ferocity at the enemy's neck and chest. A sharp whoosh signaled an arrow's flight. Just as Pell prepared to react, a sharp pain pierced his side. A bone arrowhead had penetrated his leather armor, though the chainmail beneath thwarted further injury. Cursing quietly, Pell grasped the trembling shaft of the arrow, extracting it from his armor and discarding it onto the ground. Protect the knight. Archers, on the hill to the west. He commanded. Archers, retaliate. Under the pallid moonlight, the slaughter persisted. A robust wild man, appearing as a leader, glared at Knight Pell, blood spilling from his mouth as his eyes reddened with fury. Soldiers of the Survey Corps relentlessly drove their short swords into the wild man's abdomen. Previously, it had been the wild tribes that had been ambushed by the Survey Corps. Tonight marked the first ambush of the Survey Corps by the wild tribes, igniting an unfamiliar fury within the steadfast Knight Pell. His cold gaze fell upon the lifeless body of the tribal chief sprawled on the ground. Its innards spilled forth in a grotesque display of blood and flesh. The deeper the tribes dwelled within the valley, the fiercer their nature became. Knight Pell's old comrade and friend, Knight Masson, had been tasked by Lord Green with overseeing the construction of a new farmstead in the old lands of Kleber. As the demand for food resources escalated, Pell found himself compelled to hasten the campaign against the wild tribes. As the Survey Corps ventured deeper, the resistance of the valley's savages intensified, resulting in an increasing toll of casualties among Pell's meticulously selected elite soldiers, each renowned hunters from the region. He found himself in dire need of more chainmail and shields, and even the battle-hardened Knight Pell began to feel the weight of fatigue upon his body. He concluded that the Survey Corps required a period of respite. In their next encounter, they would unleash true terror upon their foes. In the camp, the summer night sparkled with stars. Jaime retorted, utilizing fear? Green shrugged. The dragons of Targaryen instilled fear across the 7 kingdoms, granting them the Iron Throne. Had the Mad King possessed dragons, His Majesty Robert would be left grasping his invincible warhammer, cowering by the storm-lashed shores. Jaime attempted to laugh, without reservation. Yet his smile faltered. Chapter 59. The Prime Minister's chamber just as he contemplated the food supply issue in Old Kleber. Herschel found himself plagued by another concern within the territory. With the increasing renown of the Thorn Brigade, the spearwomen of Kleber had become increasingly audacious in their actions. Herschel, who concurrently served as the governor of Mermaid Harbor, had received reports from the constable regarding several incidents where spearwomen forcibly abducted men. As the harbor thrived, the influx of outsiders surged, and it was often these newcomers who fell victim to the spearwomen's aggression. Faced with the fierce spearwomen of Kleber, most men found themselves utterly powerless. The only solace for Herschel lay in the fact that the injured men were too embarrassed to publicly divulge their plight, often choosing to remain silent, thus sparing Mermaid Harbor from any tarnishing of its reputation. According to the Lord's vision, the majority of future trade in the Kleber territory was slated to converge upon Mermaid Harbor. Therefore, it was imperative to address these issues promptly, otherwise, the harbor would inevitably suffer repercussions. Herschel was not unfamiliar with this practice of abduction, as it had long been a prevailing issue within the Kleber territory. According to the generational wisdom passed down through Herschel's family, previous heads of the Kleber house had been diligently working to rectify such behaviors to enhance the image of their domain and adapt to the noble circles. In the past, the territory of Kleber, now referred to as the Old Land by present-day Kleber, was vast and sparsely populated. The ancestors of Kleber were inept in governance, leading to a superficial approach that persisted in the shadows. It was not until the War of Usurpers that Lady Kleber, mother to Green, led her kin to the new land, where the gathered populace was explicitly instructed to adhere to new regulations, resulting in significant improvement. Under Lady Kleber's governance for over a decade, this prevailing attitude nearly vanished. However, with the continuous assimilation of wildlings into the Kleber populace, signs of this attitude resurfaced. What troubled Herschel was that Lady Kleber had only enacted prohibitions against the abduction of women, neglecting to do the same for men. Reflecting on Lady Kleber, Herschel deemed it necessary to regulate the actions of the spear-wielding women of Kleber. The abductions of men could only be restrained by the Lord's direct command. Until receiving a directive from Green, Herschel, the steward, could only urge the constable to enhance patrols. He resumed his writing with a quill, appending this matter to his correspondence with Green. A lengthy royal hunting party was advancing southward along the main road. Having just conferred with Queen Cersei, who appeared more radiant than usual, Duke Jon suddenly inquired, "Has the royal hunt commenced on schedule?" This was the second time he posed the same question, having asked it yesterday as well. Peter, with his gaze lowered, momentarily masked a smirk at the corner of his lips. "Yes, they have already departed. And the noble ladies of the realm have also arrived as scheduled. You need not worry." Duke Jon nodded slightly. "Peter, remember, do not underestimate such events. They can subtly capture the hearts of the people." Peter placed his hand to his chest and nodded respectfully. "I appreciate your guidance, my lord. I shall keep it in mind." Observing the Duke, Peter noticed that Jon seemed lost in thought, standing silently beside him. After a considerable pause, Duke Jon finally spoke. "Having dealt with affairs of state for many years, I have encountered a myriad of individuals. Yet, the mere thought of that young Barren named Green unsettles me. It is absurd, for he is but a boy, and I cannot fathom the source of this disquiet." Peter's gaze shifted, offering solace. "You may simply be fatigued. Anyone in your position would not be at their best when weary." Jon, disregarding Peter's comfort, continued, "Queen Cersei's capriciousness is unpredictable. Such a temperament should not wield a sword, for she is bound to enact something remarkable. Trust the judgment of an elder. My honor forbids me from besmirching her highness." As Duke Jon raised his slightly trembling hand, Peter swiftly stepped forward to grasp it with both hands. "The denizens of the Crabclaw Peninsula are akin to beasts clad in human skin, a bloodthirsty sword." Duke Jon was a pragmatic individual, not prone to exaggeration. Upon hearing this, Peter felt a sudden chill at the sight of the wound Green had inflicted upon his chest. "Peter, we must devise a means to wrest the bloodsword from the Queen's grasp." Peter was acutely aware of the implications behind Duke Jon's words. This implied that he should take action against Baron Green, or at the very least, compel him to vacate King's Landing. Peter felt a twinge of discomfort. He had little desire to engage with Baron Green in the near future. After much contemplation, Peter had gained a deeper understanding of the game of power. Military aristocrats like Baron Green would adhere to the rules of the game when it favored them, but would abandon all pretense of civility when the tables turned, resorting instead to the most primal forms of violence. With this realization, Peter was left in a state of unease. Though numerous thoughts flitted through his mind, his demeanor remained inscrutable. "My lord, your plan is quite astute. Dispatch Baron Green to eliminate the Targaryens' young dragon. It would be entirely justified." Peter had been raised to prominence by Duke Jon. Chapter 61. Mastering the Tempo. The Royal Camp, Green's Tent. After bidding farewell to Queen Cersei, Green learned of Jaime's whereabouts from the soldiers of House Lannister. It turned out that Jaime had been diligently instructing Princess Myrcella in the art of horsemanship. During their private encounters, Green sensed Cersei's increasing interest in tantalizing him, compelling him to seek Jaime as a shield. Queen Cersei was well aware that her beauty was her most formidable weapon, and she possessed an innate talent for employing her charms. Green understood that Cersei was leveraging her allure to ensnare his heart and mind. As Green continued to accrue various accolades, the intensity of Cersei's seductive machinations also escalated. Cersei was gradually asserting her control over Green in her own manner, ensuring that she could rely on him without reservation. A mature-minded Green believed that had he been a different, more naive young man, he would have long succumbed to Cersei's wiles. Yet, Green remained steadfast in his original intent. He needed to maintain control of the rhythm. He required Jaime. Green believed that he could easily assume Jaime's role in teaching Princess Myrcella to ride, and thus, Jaime should promptly return to his previous position, ever at the Queen's side. Seizing upon the pretext of a matter concerning the Highgarden messenger, Green secured Cersei's consent to allocate some of the Lannister guards to bolster the perimeter alongside the forces of House Clegane. Most crucial, however, was the need for formidable guards surrounding Cersei. The gold cloaks were untrustworthy, necessitating the reassignment of some of the red cloaks to reinforce the Queen's defenses. Green offered himself to Cersei, taking over the task of instructing Princess Myrcella in horsemanship from Jaime. Without much deliberation, Cersei acquiesced to Green's proposal, as she relished Jaime's company, and had grown somewhat unaccustomed to his recent absence. Ultimately, Green accepted the reins of the little white horse from Jaime, whose expression was darkened by discontent, and assumed the responsibility of teaching Princess Myrcella to ride. 3 days passed. Though the noble ladies of the royal camp intentionally or unintentionally avoided him, the popularity of the Kleber clansmen within the camp significantly increased. The majority of the Kleber warriors had been hunters since the days of their forefathers, and their innate skills in hunting were unparalleled. Under Green's arrangement, the blue-cloaked members of the Kleber clan embarked on expeditions in groups, bringing back a bountiful harvest of game that enriched the food supplies of the camp. The lively atmosphere in the camp saw everyone praising the warriors of Kleber. As night descended upon the royal camp, Glyn sat beside the crackling bonfire. In the eyes of most, the Crabclaw Peninsula was perceived as a backward and savage land, and Glyn was regarded as a semi-barbaric noble from that region. Thus, it was conceivable that Tanya Mouton might consider her Mouton lineage to be of superior nobility in comparison to Glyn. With a flick of her finger, she expected Glyn to feel gratitude and honor, submissively yielding to her. Glyn could only conclude that Tanya Mouton was not only adept at undermining her rivals, but also possessed a modicum of cunning, nothing more. To Glyn, Tanya Mouton's naive tactics appeared as futile as wielding a war hammer before King Robert. He suppressed the urge to draw his sword. He felt that he had been somewhat corrupted by the simplicity of the clan warriors. Ruffling his dark hair, he raised a hand to halt Tanya Mouton's discourse. Miss Mouton, may I inquire if your actions are influenced by Count William of Waterspring Town, or are they of your own volition? The interruption ignited a surge of anger within Tanya Mouton. While she was infuriated, she also pondered the implications of Glyn's words, feeling a tremor of unease. Did he already know? Panic ensued within her, and her first instinct was to evade. Baron Glyn, I do not quite comprehend your meaning. It is late. Glyn's demeanor shifted from indifference to a gradually sharpened gaze. If this is Count William's design, I shall interpret it as a declaration of war. The well-meaning Glyn intended to impart a lesson to Tanya Mouton. Perhaps it was the legacy of the Mouton family? Once, in their overreaching ambition, the Mouton family had allied with several minor houses to attempt the conquest of the Crabclaw Peninsula. The feeble red salmon had been vanquished, leaving them disarmed. And had it not been for the intervention of the Long family, the Mouton name would have long since vanished. Tanya Mouton retorted angrily, How dare you insult our family? Glyn replied coolly, Is your conduct not a form of insult as well? Tanya Mouton opened her mouth to respond, but found herself at a loss for words. With a dismissive wave of his hand, Glyn stated, It is late. Miss Mouton, you should return to rest. Worried that she might have caused a significant faux pas, Tanya Mouton considered that it was unlikely. Although Baron Glyn was known for his cold demeanor, he did not strike her as someone who would make a mountain out of a molehill. The two families would not go to war over such trivial matters. With this thought, Tanya Mouton sighed in relief, her heart finally settling after the fright Glyn's words had instilled in her. Having arrived at this juncture, Tanya Mouton realized that any possibility of a future with Glyn was utterly extinguished. She could only lament the rarity of a young man, still unmarried, who had already inherited his family's legacy. In her contemplation, Chapter 63, Unyielding, the astute Petyr sensed that both he and Glyn had underestimated the martial prowess of Duke Stannis. At this moment, Duke Jon lay with his eyes closed, breaths shallow and labored. Glyn's presence here might have delighted him, as it could provoke Jon's immediate demise. However, Petyr sought to prolong Jon's condition, intending to gradually usurp the Prime Minister's authority, rather than witnessing his abrupt death. Petyr stepped forward, his customary elegant smile replaced by an intense gaze fixed upon Duke Stannis. In a grave tone, he stated, Duke Stannis, you have seen the situation. I believe our discussions can come to a close. Stannis huffed coldly, replying, Petyr, do you find fault with my words? Petyr subtly shook his head. Duke Stannis, I am merely the Minister of Finance. I do not pass judgment. Petyr wished to avoid a discourse on right or wrong. His sole desire was to expedite Jon's departure, as he was in dire need of rest. Stannis rose from his chair, his imposing stature casting a shadow of pressure upon the comparatively diminutive Petyr. With a frosty tone, Stannis declared, The kingdom is sadly governed by you incompetent fools. His gaze shifted to the feeble Duke Jon, his expression hardening. Weakness should not serve as an excuse to disregard the law. If you cannot heed my words, then consider the kingdom's welfare. After delivering his admonition, Stannis shot a final cold glance at Petyr, refrained from further dialogue, and with a curt bow to Jon, turned sharply to exit the Prime Minister's study. Upon exiting the Prime Minister's tower, Stannis paused, his keen eyes directed towards the throne hall. Contemplating the king's favored advisors, a fleeting sense of powerlessness washed over him, though it dissipated almost instantaneously. At the very least, he remained. Stannis was still present. He resumed his stride, each step resolute, his heart steeled. He was an unshakable force. Not long after Stannis departed, Duke Jon opened his eyes. While he appeared to have regained his composure, Petyr, familiar with Jon's true nature, immediately discerned the fade of strength concealing his frailty. A subtle smile crept across Petyr's lips, acknowledging the significant impact Stannis had on Jon. This was precisely the desired effect. Jon let out a weary sigh, fatigue evident in his voice. Stannis, His temperament remains unchanged, stubborn and obstinate. Chapter 64. Rose Avenue, King's Landing, Queen's District. In a residence near the precinct of law enforcement, Green's young steward Leighton engaged in conversation with a robust man. Captain Radel, you shall reside here for the time being. New arrangements will be made upon Lord Green's return. After receiving a message from Lord Green, a contingent of 20 soldiers from Whispering City embarked on their journey and has now arrived in King's Landing. Radel, appearing to be in his 30s, is the leader of this expedition. He nodded and, out of habit, surveyed his surroundings. Leighton, I appreciate your warm welcome. What task shall we undertake during our stay? Leighton approached Radel, lowering his voice. Lord Green requires you to familiarize yourselves with this place, to know every house and every road. I will make the necessary arrangements shortly. Leighton shook his head. We must first prepare. There are many hidden eyes in King's Landing, and you will need to change your attire. We still have some time, and we should plan meticulously. I understand, Radel replied. Leighton nodded, then inquired, Captain Radel, did you encounter my sister Kalea before your departure? I did not see her. As you know, our expeditionary force has remained in the old territories. After Sir Pell selected the personnel for the mission, we proceeded directly to Mermaid Harbor without passing through Whispering City. It had been some time since they parted ways, and Radel sensed that Leighton missed his sister. After a brief pause, Radel continued, I have heard that the governor's steward, Herschel, has been quite busy, and your sister has been assisting him with many affairs in Whispering City. I believe she is faring well. You need not worry excessively. Leighton nodded slightly. Yes, my mother and I are in King's Landing, and leaving her alone in the territory makes me uneasy. Although Radel did not fully grasp such sentiments, he shrugged in understanding. In the southeastern part of the old territory, at the Thorn Brigade's camp, the commander, Emperor, sat at a table, solemnly engrossed in writing. At that moment, Rhaena, with her hair styled in a high bun, entered the tent. What oppressive weather. It's been so muggy these past few days. Is a heavy rain about to fall? She exclaimed, as she swiftly removed her robe and tossed it aside. Emperor glanced up at her, his lips slightly moving. Noticing his gaze, Rhaena tilted her body playfully and teased, I know. I'm just too hot. Allow me a moment to cool off. I will be more discreet in the presence of others. Emperor returned his focus to the table. Rhaena leaned closer, casting her eyes down, under the blazing sun. After regrouping with Steward Roselle and others, Green's party departed from Rose Avenue and journeyed southwest for approximately 2 hours. Green pulled on the reins and halted his mount. Is that the village ahead? A member of the Kleber tribe responded, Indeed, my lord. The Sleepless Bandits have been encamped in that village for the past few days. The Sleepless Bandits is a notorious group of marauders operating near the convergence of Wangling, Hejien, and Halwan territories. Known for their nocturnal assaults, they are often referred to as the Night Bandits. Green glanced towards the distant village and inquired of Ongai beside him. Do you believe now is the opportune moment to strike? Ongai responded respectfully, Indeed, my lord, they return only at dawn, and they are currently quite fatigued. The bandits remained vigilant, and Green surmised that advancing further would likely result in detection by the sentinels among them. Even the most nocturnal of thieves do not neglect to post guards during the day. After a brief pause, Green remarked, The open terrain surrounding the village makes it easy to be spotted as we draw closer. Montan and Ongai exchanged glances, and Montan silently urged Ongai to speak. Ongai subtly nodded and addressed Green, My lord, if I go alone, they will not notice me. Green raised an eyebrow and placed a hand on Ongai's shoulder. Then you shall orchestrate this ambush, with Montan assisting you. Ongai felt a surge of gratitude at Green's trust, nodding emphatically. As Ongai and Montan led the majority of their warriors away, Green's new retainer, Maddle, grew restless, casting eager glances at Green. Noticing Maddle's intense gaze, Green furrowed his brow. Maddle, do not forget your duties as a retainer. Montan and Ongai have been dispatched as my personal guards. Maddle harbored dissent in his heart, but dared not voice it. A descendant of the Klebe family knights, he had been confined to the territory due to clan regulations, never having participated in battle. Green had nurtured Maddle with care from a young age, believing in his potential prowess. Being of noble lineage, Green felt compelled to offer him special consideration. Yet he would not allow him to engage in combat until properly equipped. Currently, Maddle resembled a wild stallion, his impatience palpable. Green intended to employ his methods to help Maddle find inner tranquility. After Ongai and Montan swiftly devised their plan, Chapter 66, Shadows Beneath the Stairs unfolded. Montan, crashing through the door without hesitation, charged forward. The ambushed bandits suffered significant losses. Many perished before they even comprehended the assault. The remaining thieves had just retreated to the stone house, and upon closing the door, They were startled by the commotion Montan created, disrupting their brief respite to strategize. Is this still a human? The nearest bandit hesitated for a fleeting moment before Montan crushed his skull. The bandit leader shouted, "Engage." One bandit gritted his teeth, steeling himself as he lunged at Montan with his sword drawn. Behind the shield of his helmet, Montan's face momentarily revealed a flicker of disdain. Montan, with his robust legs, stepped forward with agility, bringing down his round shield with a resounding thud, flattening the bandit along with his sword, an embodiment of primal strength. Within the modest confines of the room, Montan leveraged his physical prowess to swiftly dispatch the nearby brigand. At that moment, one after another, the tribal warriors surged into the room, engaging in the fray. As Angui entered, he fixated on the bandit leader, who was vociferously directing his cohorts from the rear. A sly smile graced Angui's lips as he retrieved an arrow from his quiver. Just as he raised his bow, Montan hurled his bloodied warhammer, which whirled through the air. With a resounding crash, the hammer struck the bandit leader squarely on the face, the sound of splintering bone reverberating through the air. Angui swiftly adjusted his aim, releasing an arrow that found its mark, sending another bandit crumpling to the ground. After loosing his arrow, Angui glanced at Montan, remarking with a hint of exasperation, "Your aim is commendable." Concealed behind his visor, Montan's expression remained unreadable, yet the tremor of his portly form betrayed his delight. The amiable rotund figure. The battle neared its conclusion. Angui, shedding his usual composure, swiftly knocked another arrow and fired. A Kleber warrior, brandishing a battle axe, was about to claim the head of the last bandit when he heard the ominous whistle of an arrow slicing through the air. Thud! The bandit, clutching the arrow embedded in his throat, fell to the ground, blood seeping from his lips. The axe-wielding warrior emitted a grunt, turning to glare at Angui with a glint of menace in his eyes. "Let us drink." Angui hastily mimicked the gesture of drinking, prompting the warrior to nod slightly and avert his gaze. Montan pulled up his visor, grinning innocently. "Angui, do not forget my roasted meat." Angui, momentarily ignoring the cunning chub, continued. Chapter 67. Rose Avenue. Too breathless, Lady Lysa Tyrell lifted her skirt. Peter Barrick reached out to halt her movement. Lysa, Peter's voice, rich and magnetic, seemed to awaken a flicker of reason within her. With a charming smile, he gazed at her with tender affection. "Come with me." Beneath Peter's exterior lay a cold rationality. He donned various personas before different individuals, always playing the role most advantageous to himself. No matter how impulsive Peter was, he would never engage in such affairs near the Prime Minister's tower. He refrained from telling Lysa that this place was inappropriate, as he could never bring himself to reject her affection. Peter's elegance remained intoxicating. "There is a room over there that could complement your beauty, my Lady Lysa." Lysa's cheeks flushed deeper. In his heart, she would forever be Lady Lysa Tyrell of Flowing City, and he loved her profoundly. "We shall be together." Shyly, Lysa placed her chubby hand gently atop Peter's outstretched palm. Peter's eyes subtly quivered. "Peter, you haven't come to see me for several days." Lysa's tone bore a hint of reproach, yet it was predominantly tinged with shyness. Given Lysa's current age and appearance, her expression, movements, and manner of speaking seemed quite incongruous. However, the unwavering affection in Peter's eyes remained steadfast. Patel grasped Lysa's hand tightly, declaring, "I endure all this for the sake of safeguarding our future, for you, Lysa." Lysa reflected on how Patel had, for over a decade, humbled himself beside her husband, serving dutifully. She understood all too well that Patel was not fond of such a role, but bore it silently for her sake. Her heart swelled with love, and she found herself at a loss for how to reciprocate his deep devotion. All she could offer in this moment was to lower herself once more. Peter's smile momentarily faltered. After a prolonged silence, he finally responded. Lysa glanced down, saying, "My little finger is quite lively today." Though she spoke in intimate whispers, the mention of her little finger caused Patel's smile to momentarily stiffen. With one arm around Lysa, he stepped forward, saying, "My Lysa, you may find it impossible to sleep peacefully all night." "Patel, my night, I enjoy sleeping in," she replied. At the Red Fortress, Chapter 68, the Rose Avenue. Upon reaching the riverbank, the first task for the group was to boil water. Unbeknownst to them, Kleber soldiers had unwittingly adopted some of Green's customs, such as drinking boiled water. As Montanway Chouet remarked, boiled water pairs well with meat. Delicious. Green's lunch consisted of riverbank horse meat sausage and white bread. As he chewed on the sausage, his mind was preoccupied with thoughts of the riverbank. From small observations, Green deduced, based on the information at hand and his careful scrutiny, that the riverbank was excessively robust, provided that no internal strife arose within the Rose family. Their resources could outlast all opponents in a prolonged conflict. Glyn was merely engaging in rational analysis. He was not one to frighten himself. Once he finished the last bite of sausage, he clapped his hands and stood up, declaring, "The Crabclaw Peninsula is not weak, for I am here." After a brief midday respite, Glyn and his party resumed their journey along the Rose Avenue, heading toward Highgarden. With his keen, beast-like intuition, Montanway Shui sensed a shift in Glyn's demeanor. The typically reserved and humble Glyn now appeared to exude a hint of arrogance. Reminiscent of the time when he first met Jaime Lannister, Glyn was adjusting to this new persona. In the realm of the riverbank, his demeanor would differ from before. He was a young man who had triumphed over 20,000 wildlings with merely 1,000 soldiers, emerging as a military noble star. Externally, he represented the favorite of Queen Cersei. He was proud and dismissive of all, save for his admiration for the Duke of Highgarden. From a young age, Glyn held the military prowess of Duke Mestral in high esteem. The Duke's profound command of military strategy, akin to art, was something only the perceptive Glyn could truly comprehend. Others may have been oblivious, but Glyn understood the Duke. He nodded to himself, affirming his identity. The following day, as Glyn progressed on his journey, he spotted a carriage halted by the roadside not far ahead. As he approached, the golden rose emblem on the carriage came into view. Angri leaned closer to Glyn and remarked, "That is indeed the carriage I saw yesterday." The brown-haired lady was distributing food to the villagers while it was parked nearby. Glyn inclined his head slightly and gestured for the group to slow their horses. He had intentionally avoided a potential encounter the previous day, but now he was certain it was no mere coincidence. After resolving the matter of the carriage, Margaery's vehicle seamlessly joined Glyn and his entourage. The first impression that Glyn Clegane brought to Margaery was markedly different from the image she had conjured in her mind beforehand. Despite his noble lineage from the Crabclaw Peninsula, he resembled more a knight from the south. Glyn's demeanor maintained an appropriate distance, making Margaery feel at ease, a rare quality. Having experienced such nuances herself, Margaery understood that mastering social etiquette requires an intricate blend of sensitivity and innate talent. She mused that Glyn's ability to capture the favor of Queen Cersei indeed indicated some extraordinary attributes. Moreover, Margaery noted the remarkable silence of Glyn's guards. Having encountered the elite of the Bay of Rivers, she recognized that they were equally disciplined, remaining silent until commanded otherwise. However, there was something unusual about the quietude of Glyn's guards. It felt almost abnormal. Margaery, disinterested in military affairs, merely entertained the thought momentarily without dwelling on it. As they traveled in silence, they found a serene riverbank to rest as noon approached. "Might I invite Miss Margaery Tyrell to share lunch by the river?" Glyn proposed. They were merely acquaintances, still strangers, and the chasm between their social standings made any excessive familiarity on Glyn's part seem presumptuous. Yet, if Glyn were to apply himself, these matters would not pose significant issues. The crux remained that, although Margaery was the daughter of the Duke, Glyn's heart could only harbor the notion of a mere inflatable fish Duke. After a simple lunch, the perceptive Glyn deliberately wandered alone to the riverbank to appreciate the scenery. The crystal-clear stream resembled a beautiful blue silk. Indeed, Glyn did not have to wait long. Margaery approached, her hands gently lifting her skirts as she made her way toward him. At a suitable distance, Glyn wore a look of mild surprise and politely inclined his head toward Margaery. Their eyes met, and Margaery's doe-like gaze sparkled with a smile. In that fleeting moment, Glyn's heartbeat seemed to miss a beat. He managed to suppress the sudden surge of emotions. For Glyn, at this juncture, the extravagance of love would only hinder the swiftness with which he drew his sword. Margaery gently tilted her chin, her gaze drifting towards the placid surface of the river. Coincidentally, Chapter 70, The Bastard Children, unfolded at the Stinking Fish Tavern near the Blackwater River dock under the night sky. "Indeed, my grandfather encountered a mermaid." The speaker was a balding middle-aged man, his eyes glazed from inebriation, his face flushed. The drunken man's voice boomed, and laughter erupted among the crowd. "Ha ha ha. Listen to this drunkard's absurdity. Only a fool would believe a drunkard's tales." Others referred to him as Drunkard Jack, claiming his family once owned a seafaring vessel. "Oh, spare us. Where did you hear such nonsense? Don't believe a word of it." "Ha ha, not necessarily. Even a drunk may occasionally speak the truth." A gaunt figure with a sharp, thin face suddenly exclaimed, "I believe him." The crowd paused in surprise, then burst into laughter. "Isn't that clever Dick? Clever? Shoo. Has he struck it rich? He used to dress like a ragamuffin. Just look at him now." Several individuals tilted their heads in scrutiny. Perhaps his sister encountered a generous man. "What do you mean?" The speaker lowered his voice, saying, "I heard his sister is a courtesan at the Shataya house." The group seated at the table could not help but gasp. That is the finest brothel in King's Landing. But why? Shoo, come closer. They are of noble descent. Noble? Do not speak such nonsense. Do you wish to lose your head at the city gates? I speak the truth. Clever Dick himself claimed it while inebriated, and I was at the adjacent table. The crowd gasped in astonishment. He does not appear to be a nobleman at all. Shoo, keep it down. Alas, I was quite drunk as well, only vaguely recalling something about a golden flower from Crabclaw Peninsula. Uffed, it can't be yet another illegitimate child of a nobleman, can it? Outside the Stinking Fish Tavern, the discreetly attired Jaime Lannister tossed a silver stag towards a shadow. The shadow deftly caught the coin. Noble stranger, I am at your service. Jaime Lannister furrowed his brow in silence, merely waving his hand as he stepped forward. The stench permeated the air, and Jaime's patience had reached its limit. Chapter 71. Words once spoken. Green's slender fingers lightly tapped on the armrest. The composed Varys Targaryen also perceived the fleeting sharpness in Green's eyes. The smile on Velis Tiller's face deepened, yet it did not resonate within him. For him, such matters were inconsequential. Green's mind raced as he analyzed the situation. Did little Rose Marjorie truly not believe Green's earnest words? He speculated whether the Duke of Inflatable Fish had been tacitly sidelined by the Tiller family, excluded from crucial decisions. Although Green represented Queen Cersei, the Tiller family stood with unwavering confidence, with Velis Tiller, the heir of Highgarden, hosting the Queen's envoy in place of Duke Mace. The Tiller family's etiquette was barely acceptable, yet for them, it sufficed. Was this a precautionary measure against the interference of Lord Renly Baratheon's plans? Did the Grand Duke of Inflatable Fish realize that he had been indirectly isolated by the Tiller family? At this thought, Green felt a surge of indignation. Unable to bear it, he entertained the notion of proactively assisting the Duke in clearing his court. Green contemplated that Duke Mace might also be an accomplice. However, he swiftly dismissed this idea. Regardless of the truth, to Green, Duke Mace could only be seen as someone misled by others. Lord Velis, I shall await a few days at the camp outside the castle. Upon hearing Green's words, Velis Tiller paused, nodded at Green, and then remained silent. Green offered no further words, bowed in farewell, and with a flourish of his blue cloak adorned with marsh marigolds, turned and departed. Once Green's figure vanished, Velis closed his eyelids and smiled faintly. As he left Highgarden Castle and returned to the camp, Green suddenly pulled the reins and halted his horse. He gazed up at the tiered structure of the castle, exclaiming, "Monton, how many men would it take to seize that?" Pointing towards Highgarden Castle, he continued, "Your lord has set his sights on this place." Monton, with bewildered eyes, stared at the distant white castle and replied, "My lord, our numbers are somewhat insufficient." A smirk played on Green's lips as his brown eyes turned towards Monton. "What do you propose?" Monton glanced at Ongai beside him and replied, "They are unprepared for us. We could easily infiltrate and seize it. My concern lies in our insufficient numbers for what comes next." Chapter 72. The advance of Green. Samwell pondered how to remedy the situation. Despite feeling guilty towards his brother, he aimed to amplify the commotion. Before leaving the castle, he sought a way for his father, Lord Lannister, to discover their whereabouts. In comparison, it might be preferable to have his brother taken out only to be recaptured, thus potentially reducing his punishment. Overly corpulent, Samwell struggled to keep pace with Daikon, who had already begun to pant heavily after a short distance. "Daikon, do not rush. Baron Kleber has likely just arrived and will not leave so swiftly. We still have time," he gasped, though Daikon was anxious. He slowed his pace upon noticing his brother Samwell's condition. "Brother, that is a challenge in the arena. Baron Green is daring enough to confront all the swordsmen of Riverbend alone. If we arrive too late and find he has already been defeated, our journey will be in vain. I do not wish to miss a single contest. Baron Green is taking on the entire assembly of Riverbend swordsmen. Samuel feels that the Baron's audacity is truly remarkable, and Sister Tara will accompany us as well. She is already in the carriage, waiting for us." Before Samuel could fully absorb the first piece of news from Deacon, he was startled by another revelation. His sister Taratali is going too? The worst has yet to come. The most dreadful part is just beginning. Samuel feels he is doomed this time. Before leaving, he wishes to see his mother one last time. He will not stutter nor shy away. He will stand tall and boldly express his deep love for her. Samuel wishes to salvage the moment and hurriedly adds, "I will speak to father before we set off." How dare he approach father? Because of him, brother has faced father's wrath, and Deacon has felt guilty for days, avoiding any conversation with Samuel. In the past, after being reprimanded by father, Samuel would carefully hide for at least a month to evade him. Has brother become so brave? Deacon feels immense joy at Samuel's transformation. "Brother, have you forgotten? It is currently hunting season. Father has taken the hunters into the woods, and will not return for some time. Samuel is pulled into the carriage by his brother, and upon seeing Sister Tara, he regains his senses. After months apart, his sister, inheriting their mother's beauty, has become even more exquisite. He wishes to praise Sister Tara's loveliness like the knights in books, but despite moving his lips, the words remain unspoken. Tara Tali senses her brother Samuel's unease. Chapter 73. The Great Figures Buzz. As the final banner was raised in the arena, the air seemed to still for a moment. Perched high above, Green, with an impassive expression, observed the increasingly boisterous crowd, reflecting on how many here were literate. If this were Crabclaw Peninsula, most would be unable to comprehend. Green's quietly arranged commentators and various supporters were rendered unnecessary, merely serving to enhance the atmosphere. Green lamented the lost opportunity. If time permitted, he could have organized an outside betting event. The first challenger of the following day ascended the arena amidst the clamor. Green noticed the family crest embroidered in gold cranes on a pure blue background adorning the challenger's attire. Green raised an eyebrow. Could it be the Clegane family? The Clegane family is one of the Riverbend families that directly pledge allegiance to the Tiller family. Green recalls that a member of the Clegane family served as a purple guard within the Rainbow Guard established by King Baelor. With his long sword held confidently at his side, Green addressed the challenger. Let the contest begin, esteemed swordsman of the Clegane family. The Clegane family swordsman remained silent as he swung his sword at Green with a sideways motion. Clang! Green defended with his sword, and the clash of their blades produced a piercing sound of steel grinding against steel. Although they were engaged in a contest of swordsmanship, the seemingly serious Green was inwardly critical, perceiving his opponent as yet another impetuous youth with scant skill. Just yesterday, for the sake of theatrical effect, Green typically concluded battles after a dozen exchanges. However, having initiated the first phase of the taunting at Riverbend today, he deemed it appropriate to reduce the number of rounds. After approximately 8 or 9 exchanges, Green suddenly intensified his strikes. The Clegane family swordsman, who had just begun to acclimate to Green's swordplay, found himself jolted by this unexpected surge of power, causing his arm to tingle as he struggled to maintain his grip on the hilt. Before the Clegane swordsman could regain his composure, Green's long sword descended swiftly once more. The Clegane swordsman, bracing himself, raised his sword to block. With a resounding clang, his weapon was knocked aside, and Green's sword was already poised against the Clegane swordsman's neck. Green retracted his blade, casting a cold glance at the Clegane swordsman, who had collapsed onto the arena, before turning to leave. Today, there would be no comforting words from Green. Once he regained his senses, the Clegane swordsman picked up his sword, his face marked by disappointment as he dejectedly exited the arena. Next, the second challenger was dispatched in 7 or 8 exchanges. The third challenger lasted 6 or 7 exchanges. Chapter 74. The Dance of Victory as the Sun Ascended. The challenge arena was bustling with an even larger crowd than the previous day, regardless of their individual sentiments. Today's opening brought a significant transformation. Over 30 fully armored warriors took their positions on the stage, forming a triangular formation. Standing alone at the forefront was a rotund figure resembling a hefty meatball. Roar! 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 Suddenly, a synchronized battle cry erupted from the arena. The 30-plus armored warriors exuded an aura rivaling that of a 1,000-strong battalion. The previously boisterous crowd fell silent, transfixed as if they were witnessing a perilous battlefield filled with carnage. Drawn by the commotion, the surrounding spectators found their voices lost in awe. As music began to play, a familiar ensemble of instruments typical of Riverbend produced a melody that was quite unfamiliar to the locals. Though the tune was strange, its rhythm was intoxicating. The armored warriors on stage, in sync with the beat, created resonant sounds of metal clashing, their movements embodying the beauty of strength and precision. Especially notable was the rotund frontman, whose actions radiated power while retaining an air of agility. This nimble heavyweight was none other than Montenwashui, who had earned his position through sheer prowess. The fully armed dancers on the stage were none other than the warriors of the Cleve clan. They were performing the recently popular group dance from the Cleve territory, known as the Victory Dance of Crabclaw Peninsula, also referred to as the Cleve Victory Dance. This group dance was a modified rendition of the Victory Dance of the Axe Gang from a previous life, promoted in the territory under the name of Sir Pell, a knight in service. In the entertainment-deprived and simple-hearted territory of Kleber, this dance, imbued with a spirit of combat, was soon embraced. Initially, Green anticipated that Sir Pell would earn a title akin to Dancing Knight. However, the outcome was quite the opposite. Due to the dance's name, Sir Pell was bestowed the title of Knight of Victory. Upon learning of this, Green paused momentarily before patting the grateful Sir Pell on the shoulder. At the conclusion of the group dance, The warriors of Kleber let out a unified roar, raising their weapons high towards the sky, their impressive momentum seemingly poised to pierce the heavens. The crowd of the Riverbend region temporarily set aside their grievances to cheer for the splendid performance of the Kleber warriors. Under the explanation of the narrator, they soon learned the name of the dance, the Victory Dance of Kleber, thus increasing their fondness for the Kleber people. Glyn nodded in satisfaction, believing that one must act with purpose. As noon approached, the sun blazed fiercely. While waiting for the next challenger, Glyn was approached hastily by Steward Rossell. "My lord, the next challenger insists on fighting you with a lance." Glyn raised an eyebrow and inquired, "Which family does he belong to?" "He is a member of the Clegane family, reportedly the brother of the Clegane swordsman you defeated yesterday." Glyn's brown eyes flickered as he replied, "In a swordsman's duel, he may use a lance if he insists, but it will cost him. I shall charge him 100 gold dragons." Rossell nodded and quickly departed. Before long, a Clegane lance wielder, appearing nearly 30, approached the arena with a scowl. Standing opposite Glyn, the Clegane challenger lowered his visor. The horns signaling the start of the match sounded. The Clegane, leveraging the length of his lance, lunged at Glyn with an aggressive thrust. With a swift movement, Glyn deflected the lance aside and surged forward. His actions were remarkably quick. By the time the opponent reacted, Glyn was already upon him. With a resounding thud, Glyn's shoulder collided with the Clegane's chest, causing him to lose his balance and teeter backward. With a forceful swing, Glyn struck the opponent's visor with his hammer, producing a muffled thump, and the now slightly deformed visor of the Clegane lance wielder lay motionless on the ground. Glyn coldly commanded, "Remove him." This was a duel of honor among swordsmen, and it was preposterous for him to come wielding a lance. Merely for the sake of collecting a bit more challenge fee, he dared to show such a scowl at Glyn. With a broad-minded demeanor, Glyn, valuing the purity of the contest and the honor of the swordsman, decisively concluded the battle. No one esteemed honor more than Baron Glyn. Glyn lifted his gaze towards the sun and made a subtle gesture. Upon receiving Glyn's signal, Rossell promptly announced the conclusion of the morning's challenge. As Glyn descended from the arena, he caught sight of the three siblings from the Tully family. Rossell had already informed Glyn of their desire to meet. On the platform, Glyn appeared invincible, yet upon stepping down, his countenance was gentle and refined, easily eliciting warmth from those around him. He graciously placed a hand over his heart in salute, saying, "Good day, Lord Samuel Tully." Samuel, a stout figure adorned with a considerable beard, responded with a shy smile, "Good day, Baron Glyn Kleber. This is my sister,